Again, thanks for coming to tonight's meeting. We definitely have a full agenda, so I ask for you guys definitely your patience and bearing with us as we get through everything on the topic. We'll start out with brief commissioner introductions. My name is Lisa Gore. I'm the single member district commissioner for 3G01, which serves the neighborhoods of Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Woods. Commissioner Gosselin.
Yeah, I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent District 6, which is basically the west side of Connecticut, back to 42nd, between Western and Military, with a small peninsula to the east.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Hi, I'm Zach Ferguson. I represent single member District 07. Thanks for joining us.
Commissioner Nash.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Nash. My single member district is 03. And if you want to contact me, my email address is 3G03@anc.dc.gov. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Sherman.
Good evening, everyone. Bruce Sherman. I'm in single member District 2, which is over by the Episcopal Center for Children.
Thank you. Commissioner Zeldin.
I am GO4, which is Lafayette Elementary School and the streets about 8 blocks circumference of it.
And Commissioner Lynch.
Hey everybody, my name is Peter Lynch and I'm the commissioner for SMD 05, which is Connecticut Avenue to the Circle and over to Broad Branch. Glad to have everybody here.
Thank you everyone for those brief announcements, and just very brief to give an overview of our meeting procedures. We are in meeting mode as opposed to webinar mode. So if you want to share your screen, you can do so. You will also be able to comment if you raise your hand. We ask that you keep your microphone on mute unless you're called on by the commission to make comments. We ask that everyone be respectful. Just to let everyone know, we have had Zoom bombers at almost every meeting that we've had. So in the event that we have to abruptly end, which we did at the last meeting, please accept our apologies in advance. We will try to deal with any inappropriate display of information or insulting verbal comments as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, with the last meeting, we had to abruptly end the meeting because of the nature of the Zoom attack. So with that, commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda that you have? I have some. Commissioner Ferguson.
Yes, I'd move to amend the agenda to include a vote on the ANC's quarterly financial reports.
Okay.
At the end of the meeting.
Under commission business?
That's right.
Okay. Any other amendments? Okay. The only amendment that I have is that we will strike the presentation from update from Dr. Carrie Brocard, principal of Lafayette Elementary School. The dates that she was given, I gave her the actual incorrect date. I gave her the 27th. So we're going to have her join us in May.
She's welcome to come to the ZDD meeting.
Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, with that, I move that we adopt the agenda as changed. All those in favor? Okay, 7-0, thank you. Okay, we'll start with commissioner announcements. Any commissioners have announcements? Commissioner Gosselin?
Yeah, I want to invite all of the commissioners and the entire community to a great event at the Chevy Chase Circle, May 5th. After years of the fountain not working and then a year of construction, the basin, all of the plumbing has been replaced, and for the first time in the century that fountain has been there, lights have been installed. And at gathering at 8:15 on Friday, May 5th, and counting down to 8:30, bring your noisemakers, bring your children. There's going to be a band there. At 8:30, the lights go on for the first time, and inshallah, they work. And the plume, not only the basin is lit up, but so is the plume. And so we look forward for the whole community coming out for this. And that whole weekend will be spent in celebration of this great improvement. On Friday night, people will not be allowed to go into the circle per the National Park Service. There's concern about traffic. There will be supervised, the Friends of Chevy Chase Circle, on which I serve, will supervise crossings, safe crossings to the fountain area, to the circle on Sunday. Thank you. I think that's all I have for right now.
Okay. Any other commissioner have announcements?
I have one.
Okay, Commissioner Lynch, then Nash.
Yeah, this is more of the things. This past Saturday, Una, who's on the call, led a trash pickup outside of Starbucks, which I attended, and I wouldn't have known about it had it not been for Anna Claire and the business district bridges update. So thank you both for all that you're doing for the community. It's awesome. Keep it up. Thank you so much. And then also thanks to Elizabeth Vaden, who broadcast a WIN event that I attended, which was really powerful. And so to those three, really appreciate all the work you're doing for the community, and please keep it up. Thank you.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes, DDOT is doing some stormwater improvements to the streetscape. And on May 17th at 7 p.m., they're going to be doing a walking tour of an area within my single member district 03. And anyone who's interested in learning more about it is welcome to come. That's May 17th, 7 p.m. and it begins at the corner of Nebraska and Livingston Streets. And another request for commissioners who want their announcements to appear in the minutes, please send them to me in writing and put on the subject line commissioner announcements. Thank you.
It would also be helpful to put the meeting date.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. Meeting date and then the announcement. Thank you.
any other commissioner announcements? Okay, the only one that I have is just to let the community know, following up on ANC 34G's resolution on OSSI's port bus service for our kids that have special needs in the District of Columbia. Myself and another commissioner in ANC 3C, Swale Siddiqui, had a meeting on April 14th with OSSI staff. We're going to continue to meet with them. I'll put some highlights in the ANC newsletter that's about to go out, but one of the major things that we talked about is just some of the issues with parent reimbursement, and a really good conversation on how OSSI's statistics, so their performance statistics in meeting what they call on time pickup, is derived. And just to let the community know briefly, that's derived from the time the bus leaves the depot. Believe it or not. So we were quite surprised to find out that's how they gather that statistic. So we'll be following up on that. Okay, community announcements. Yep, please raise your hand. Okay, Anna Claire.
Hi there. Thank you so much for giving the Spring Fling a shout out, Commissioner Gosselin, and the cleanup, Commissioner Lynch. Thank you so much for promoting both of those things. I just wanted to add that the Chevy Chase Main Street, which I'm the manager of, is also participating in Spring Fling. And there will be a First Fridays event as normal, the first Friday of May, which will go very nicely into the festivities at the fountain later on in the evening. And then on Saturday, the Chevy Chase Main Street will be hosting a market on the 56 and 5700 blocks of Connecticut on the west side of the sidewalk, as well as a children's scavenger hunt through the retail stores. And there's also going to be live music at Blue 44 in the evening on that Saturday. So I'm going to drop the website in the chat, but there's going to be so much going on that weekend. Definitely try to make it to some of the events. And then Sunday, there's a garden tour as well. So a lot going on. Check out our website or Friends of Chevy Chase Circle's website and stop by First Fridays on your way to the fountain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really happening place.
Yeah. Matthew?
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Matthew Barclay. I'm a Ward 3 Mokers for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. Put my contact information in the chat after I announce. I have some announcements. Also, Derek Johnson's here as well, but I'll let him introduce himself after. So there is a DC Tax Revision Commission that will be happening at in-person town hall. This will be on May 1st at 7 p.m. at the Arc West Black Box Theater, 1801 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. And you can register at a link that I'll put in the chat. There's also a virtual option, Thursday, May 4th at 6:30 p.m. There will also be a registration link. But this only happens every 10 years. The DC Council and the Mayor appoint an 11-person commission to do a careful review of the DC tax system. And they are interested in your perspective on the taxes. So please come on out. It's a town hall. You'll be able to give your input. I will be there. So if you see me, come say hello. The last 15 centers, recreation centers, have now have their expanded hours. For Ward 3, that'll be Hardy, Hearst, Glover Park, and Friendship Parks. And that'll be Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. There is also a fair housing listening lab. It's a virtual lab. April 27th at 6 p.m. And OHR is calling all district residents, voucher holders, housing providers, real estate agents, developers, community leaders, and stakeholders to be heard. So come out on that as well. The DC Department of Housing, this is another one. DC Department of Housing and Community Development is having an opening house for the district-owned property that they will be selling to a first-time home buyer at 50% or below of the median income, MFI level, of a household size up to 4 people. And there will be like there'll be an open house of this property, and you'll be able to be considered for that. You'll need an expression of interest. So to complete the expression of interest form by April 27th, the open house will be held on the 29th. And then you can register at dhcdmyfairshot.eventbrite.com. And that will be between, oh, I'm messing this all up, I'm sorry. Saturday, April 29th, 2023, and Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, 850 19th Street Northeast, dhcdmyfairshot.eventbrite.com. And then I can put the DHCD's website in there here as well, so you can have more information on how you could potentially buy this if you're qualified. Also, it is DC Latino Restaurant Week, and there is quite a few restaurants participating in this. So you can go to oladc.gov. So this is the Office of Latino Affairs to see who all is participating in this small biz week. Also, on Earth Day, Ward 3 Mokers and the Rock Creek Conservancy, along with Clean City DC, Mayor's Office of Clean City DC, we picked invasive plants out of a 2,000 square foot section of Rock Creek Park, and then so that native plants will be able to grow. So that was last Saturday, and we had a great time, and I would be interested in doing it again on a regular basis. If anybody in the community would be up for it, let me know. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Matthew. Raisha? Corey?
Hi, good evening. Sorry, you guys. I'm actually just pulling in. I just wanted to stop by to, on behalf of DDOT's Broad Branch Soapstone Valley, Spring Valley project. I wanted to remind you guys that we're having a field walk this week on April 26th. This Wednesday, starting at 5 o'clock, and we really would like the community to come out. I'm gonna drop the Eventbrite link in the chat. We're gonna go to 4 different locations, and you pick the locations that's best for you. Again, I'll drop the link in the chat so you guys can register. We'd really appreciate some feedback on that. That's all.
Appreciate that. Amy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Sonnenberg, and I am Councilmember Pruman's Constituent Services Director. I've emailed with some of you and Chair Gore, it's very lovely to see you. You previously had Lee Catherine Miles, our Chief of Staff, who came to the ANC 34G meetings, and now you have me. I also work for Mary Che, if any of you are familiar with me from her office as well. So I just wanted to say hello and say if you need help with any constituent services related issues, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email and information in the chat, and also you can go to Matt Fruman Ward 3 to his website and make a constituent services request from there. I know that we have a packed agenda, so I'll try to go through quickly. I'm going to put some information in the chat about some helpful PEPCO information. DOEE often advertises programs like LIHEAP and other energy saving programs. PEPCO also has some of those, which can help when funding for those other ones might not be there. Also DPW, so the Department of Public Works, is launching finally their curbside composting pilot program. They started doing that. You were able to sign up starting this past Saturday at 9 a.m. DPW is only selecting the first 1,500 eligible single family households to sign up from each of the city's 8 wards. But it's very exciting. The program will provide free weekly curbside food waste collection for up to 12,000 single DPW serviced households in the district for a year. And then also something I learned about today from the Office of the Attorney General, they have a consumer mediation program. It's a free service that helps to aid consumers resolve issues with businesses or landlords without going to court. And when the consumer files a complaint with their program, OAG reaches out to the business or the landlord to see if they can help obtain refunds or other redress. And it's voluntary for all parties, but last year, for example, they were able to return more than $582,000 to consumers in the district, and also reach other non-monetary resolutions. So I'll also put information about that in the chat. Also, a lot of people are curious generally about the Wilson Aquatic Center. I wanted to provide a brief update on that, which is that DOH, the Department of Health, and the Department of Buildings had re-inspections 2 weeks ago because they being DGS, needed to build a partition around the temporary ventilation units. DOB approved that. DOH possibly approved it on the condition that DGS provide additional information, which they did by close of business 2 weeks ago. And as of the end of last week, DGS still had not heard from DOH, and they were still contemplating. I know a lot of residents found on Yelp that there's a date of May 1st for the reopening. Just wanted to share that is from Yelp. That is not from DGS or DPR or our office, but please know in performance oversight hearings, budget oversight hearings, and not on the scene or on main view, the council member in our office are working very hard to press DGS and DPR on reopening. But also, if you're following the DC news, the director, Keith Anderson of DGS, moved to be DEMPED, then Delano Hunter, who is the DPR director, moved to DGS, and now we have a new interim DPR director. So that also has not helped. Yes, Commissioner.
Amy, if you can suggest anything this commission could do at its May 8th May 8th meeting to move this forward. I mean, this sounds like it's bureaucratic inertia and not something on the ground that's slowing this down. And how long has it been shut now?
Since Valentine's Day.
Great. Okay, just any suggestions that your office has about how we could assist you in pushing this forward would be helpful.
Absolutely. I know the council member would appreciate any help we can get, but we've also been very persistent. And I can also provide the commissioners, if it's helpful, with a written this is everything that's happened since February 14th, if that's helpful to pass along to constituents, because I know a lot of the problem has been lack of transparency. And so I hopefully have those updates and been trying to provide them. We included it in our newsletter last week, but anything I can do to be helpful and provide more clarity, I will absolutely do so.
Why don't you send that at least to me? Maybe all the commissioners want it, but I mean, I'm getting a lot of requests about where's the pool.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And let's see, then we also have Cynthia Collier.
Yeah, so since no one else has mentioned it, WMATA Better Bus Initiative has released their draft of the future bus network. So I would recommend that everyone check that out at betterbus.wmata.com. I'll drop the link in the chat. There will be some in-person events around the area through the end of April and into May. The closest one to us is probably Tenleytown on May 18th, 3 to 7 p.m. There's also some Zoom events. The DC focused one is May 9th, 12 to 1:30. And there are some impactful changes to the bus lines in our area. I won't go into them, but be aware and spread the word, because I have not seen this announced very many places. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to let you know, Cynthia, I've been already in communication with all of our council members, the chair of Transportation Committee, our MOKers, who some of them are here, and requested a meeting with WMATA executives. I don't know if we're going to get the chair or if we'll get a staffer, but I feel pretty strongly that we need for them to come to the community. So be out on the lookout. I've emailed a couple of people that I know are strong. We're strong E6 advocates, also people that are, as you said, very concerned about this new route proposal. So the ANC will definitely be sending something out about that. That's something we definitely have on our radar. Any other community announcements? But thank you for bringing that up, Cynthia. Okay, let's move on to the first thing in our agenda. Commissioner Sherman, update on the recent car break-ins from MPD, and I noticed that Lieutenant did check in. You want to?
Yep. Right. So let's welcome Lieutenant Marlon Oliver, who's joining us from the 2nd District Metropolitan Police Department. First, want to acknowledge that this is a briefing about the recent car break-ins that took place in the overnight period from April 14th to 15th at about 4 a.m. There were 7 break-ins on Rittenhouse in the 2800 block. Obviously, that number in such a brief period of time, just in one overnight period, shocked a lot of the local residents. So we wanted to bring attention to this and have Lieutenant Oliver speak to us about that. I know that there are several of our residents on Rittenhouse in that block, Chair Gore, that are with us tonight. So we'd like to acknowledge them and give them an opportunity to speak if they wish to do so. It might also be appropriate, however, given the fact that Lieutenant Oliver brought to our attention a serious crime on Rittenhouse this afternoon. If, Lieutenant, you wish to speak to that just briefly, it was posted, I believe, on the listserv, so the broader community might be aware of the armed robbery that took place in the 3500 block of Rittenhouse. If you want, Lieutenant, to just touch on that briefly, and then we'll go into the car break-in issue. You're muted.
Can you all hear me?
And now, yes.
Okay. All right. How's everyone doing? Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good.
3500 block of Rittenhouse today around 12:55 p.m. Construction worker was doing some work in the alley, in the backyard of a resident's house, but he was parked in the alley. a silver truck. He observed the silver truck parked the top of the alley away from him. While he was getting some tools out of his truck, two individuals approached him. One of them brandished a weapon. He was struck with that weapon, and he was told to run. The construction worker ran away, ran up to the house he was working on. He saw the individuals leaving. He ran back to his truck and he observed them running away with a jackhammer or some sort, some kind of tool. They jumped into the silver truck and they fled. That's basically all we have. If anybody having any questions about it, I would feel free to answer, give you whatever answers I can actually give.
Great. Well, thank you. I just thought it'd be appropriate to mention that given the severity of it and the fact that we are going to be talking about other crimes on Rittenhouse in the 2800 block. So why don't we, unless someone does have a question specifically about the armed robbery. Yeah, Peter. Go ahead, Peter Lynch. Your hand's up. You're muted. Yeah.
You have to unmute me.
You're good. We can hear you.
Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Lieutenant, for being here. I've heard this before that work crews are often targets. Is there any communication set up between businesses to make these work crews aware of the possible threat that they may be facing during the day? Or is there a good way to communicate to those crews?
You're muted.
Lieutenant, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay. Our community resource personnel, she sends out emails to most of the businesses that she do have registered with us, as far as they come, they put their business email in there. We give them updates and stuff, kind of like a listserv for the businesses. But this business is from Maryland, so I don't even know if they were actually on that thing, if we're reaching that far at all. But yeah, we do send out stuff to businesses.
Great. Is there anything that people hiring these sort of workers could tell or advise their workers?
Right. So
when they're on the job?
Yeah. So the owner of the company, he actually came down to the job site, and I was talking to him, and he was just happy that his employee wasn't hurt, which everyone was happy about. We give him advice like put serial numbers or some identification markers on your tools and stuff, because if it's sold to like pawn stores, pawn shops and stuff, we can try to backtrack them to the assailant. Just advice like that we gave them, and they just had they parked in the alley, which is most convenient for them to do the work, since it's a backyard work. I don't see a problem, issue with that, but we have suspects riding around looking to target construction workers for the tools. The tools are very expensive tools. $3,000, $5,000 tools get stolen all the time. So, they just got to stay vigilant, look out, leave a situation if they can, so they don't get hurt. Call the police right away. This individual this victim that he actually took his phone out. They got the word out to us, but he tried to record, but he didn't get anything, any useful video.
Right. Thank you. Commissioner Zeldin, then Commissioner Gosselin.
Right. Hey, Marlon, when we were at the budget meeting of the mayor, one of the things I had asked if it could be done is for the police department to make a handout in English and in Spanish that advises people to keep their trucks locked, to register their tools, to make sure that their purses are taken into the homes. Because as commissioners or citizens, we walk the streets all the time. And if we could have a English, Spanish handout to give to the people who are working in our neighborhood to tell them about the registration of tools, which I doubt they have because most of them don't even have insurance for these tools. I don't think they're registering them. And about the cleaning crews to keep their stuff in. I think it'd be very helpful. So we talked about that back then, and I'm wondering if we could take this as a follow-up and see if we can get MPD to print these things and hand them we can pick them up, the commissioners can pick them up, then we can hand them out ourselves to people in our community, because we have many more legs on the ground than MPD has.
Okay, yeah, so for the past couple of weeks, I've had the officers increase patrol in the neighborhoods and around Connecticut Avenue, and we're handing out, we ran out of the pamphlets and stuff. They were putting them in cars and handing them out as they patrol. So yeah, we could definitely do that. I'll speak with the community lady to get some more handouts, some more flyers.
But specifically in English and in Spanish, and where it talks about the registration and to keep their trucks and cars locked and things out of plain view, because that's what is the MO, it seems. Rittenhouse is different. I think that was just kids breaking windows, but anyway, on this stuff, that's my ask.
Copy that. I follow you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gosselin.
Yeah, let me make a suggestion of something that residents could do based on my having done a major renovation at this house. I've lived here 25 years and I've never had a car broken into. The work crews at this house had 4 break-ins in the 6 or 7 months that they worked here. My impression is that most work crews are concerned about whether they're going to be ticketed. So if people could get temporary permits through the semi-complex DC parking permit system, so that they can put that in the window, these construction crews would know they're legal, so they would be more willing to move fast in calling the police and so on. My sense is that most of these construction crews are basically handling this problem on their own because they're worried that they'll get ticketed. So that's my suggestion for how residents who are hiring these people could help.
Right, and it's pretty easy. Just come to the lobby of the district and you could get the temporary parking permits.
Great. So let's, these are all good questions, good suggestions. Let's segue to specifically the car break-in issue. Chair Gore, if you could allow me to share my screen, I have a video. All right.
There's also a comment in the chat. While you're doing that, I'll read it to you, Lieutenant Olivier. Would more resident participation in the MPD camera program be helpful in regards to both types of crime on Rittenhouse that are being discussed?
Yes, that would be very helpful. You know, we recover a lot of Ring doorbell type videos from residents. But if they participate in the camera program with Metro, with MPD, we could actually get those cameras a little higher and aimed a little better than just straight front of the house. You know, up and down the street where we could actually probably catch a tag number of a vehicle or something.
Great. Well, and speaking of the camera, any camera program, can you see my screen?
No. And we have about 2 minutes, Bruce.
Okay. I was gonna, if you can see this. I will show it to you. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're watching an actual car break-in that will happen here momentarily as the perpetrators here come down the street. You can see there's no audio here. You can see a person walking down the street now, a car is pulling up, and you'll see the car stop They're targeting this car directly in front. There are several people, of course, involved here. They're looking into the car. And there's no sound, but you will notice when the alarm goes off once they've broken the window. This was in Rittenhouse again in the overnight period, April 14th to 15th. There were 7 cars broken in at that time. And the suggestion of having these cameras is very important because this is evidence. You see the car pull away. We've shared this evidence before with MPD 2nd District when there have been car break-ins in the neighborhood. It's very helpful, obviously, to them. And so certainly encourage neighbors, if they don't have these cameras, to get the cameras and to use them and share the evidence. It's also very important that they will report crimes. And so when you're, in fact, of the 7 break-ins on Rittenhouse, I know that several of them were reported. The MPD came very quickly onto the scene, and it was all very helpful. But this is a very important aspect of being able to control for this kind of crime. I'd like, in the time we've got left, Chair,
we're actually out of time.
well, could we just take just a minute and have anybody from Rittenhouse who'd like to come in and speak about their own experience to do that just briefly?
Very quickly.
I know there are several on Rittenhouse: Chris Scally, Jacqueline Kilroy, Eric and Candace Campbell. If any of you would like to speak, by all means, please do.
Okay, let's wrap it up there.
Okay. So if we could, just by way of conclusion, and again, thank Lieutenant Olivier for being with us. The cameras are helpful. Obviously, everything everyone's mentioned about not keeping things in the car and advising workers and service staff at your homes not to keep things in their cars, report the crimes when they occur. And it's something that we're very vigilant about here in Single Member District 02 since we've had a rash of these. And I will be continuing to be in touch with our constituents on this matter. But we do thank very much MPD 2nd District for all of their great work and their work going into the future.
Can I say one thing?
Yep.
Okay, with these crimes, like you saw the car pull up, a couple of people jump out. These are crews that are actually going around targeting. I think it was last year and year before, they targeted catalytic converters, they targeted airbags, and some burglaries. But these are people that actually coming from other jurisdictions that are doing these things. That's all I have to say.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much, Lieutenant. I appreciate it. And we'll definitely will be back in touch with you on the public safety meeting that we're planning with MPD and others. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Okay. And moving right along on the agenda, I see Councilmember McDuffie has joined us. Thank you, Councilmember, for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing excellent. I'm glad to be with you all, and thanks for the invitation to join you this evening.
Thank you. I'm glad you could make it. We're glad to have you. So you wanted to talk budget.
Well, that's one of the aspects I wanted to talk. I figured there may be some interest in the budget, but obviously I'm here to talk about whatever you, in terms of commissioners and the constituents who are part of this Zoom, really want to talk about. I'm here at your disposal. And so I'm happy to talk about whatever priorities you all have. Obviously, public safety, I just heard and saw the video of the break, and I appreciate you all sharing that. I have a keen interest on public safety, and frankly, as chair of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, there's a nexus, I think, with crime and public safety and the district's future economic growth that we have to tackle. And I've used that every opportunity that I've had to really talk about what that looks like, and so that folks are aware when we're talking about economic development, whether it is more housing, it's more support for small businesses, it's attracting large employers, trying to increase our population, whatever it is, we've got to really bear in mind how public safety factors into people's decisions as to whether or not they want to live, work, and play and raise a family here in our city. So I'm happy to talk about whatever you all want to talk about.
Okay.
And I'm happy
I know.
opening remarks and give some background about who I am. I'm
Yes.
really going to take my cues from you all. I think you all have a pretty solid agenda this evening. And so I think my experience is more productive the less talking I do about myself and the more I do listening to you all and seeing what your priorities are. And that could be helpful.
Sounds good. Okay. Commissioners, I know you guys have some questions for Councilmember McDuffie. We'll start off with Commissioner Lynch, then Commissioner Gosselin.
Councilmember McDuffie, thank you so much for being here. We talked about this once before. We're both veterans of the DC Police Boys and Girls Club.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. I recently heard from the director of the Trayron Center for the second time that youth programming is just one of the best deterrents for kids getting into crime and helping them direct their lives. And I'm a teacher, so that's natural and makes a lot of sense to me. What are you and the other council members in the city doing to make sure that kids and students have real robust programming like we grew up with?
Well, Commissioner Lynch, I really appreciate you raising that. And I usually start these conversations off with a little bit of biographical information, not assuming that everybody, knows who I am, although I've been on the council for a little while. But as you mentioned, my upbringing was really something that helped to shape who I am. And the Metropolitan Police Boys and Girls Club was a major part of my upbringing. I grew up in the 1980s and 1990s during some of the toughest times. I think some of you all have been around long enough to know what those days were like. And while I don't want to go backwards, I do remember fondly my experiences inside of the number 10 Boys and Girls Club at 14th and Clifton. And you all know what that area was like back in the 80s and 90s. I played basketball there. I played football at number 12 Boys and Girls Club, which is located in Saratoga in the Brentwood neighborhood of Ward 5, similarly tough community. But those resources that were directed at those facilities that allowed the police to be there to help foster those relationships that I had early on as a young person that were not adversarial. My coaches were police officers. In fact, one retired as a detective with the Metropolitan Police Department. I'm still friends and I have a great relationship with him today. So in terms of those resources, it's important. In fact, I had a conversation with Councilmember Trayon White, who chairs the committee that's oversight of both the libraries and Parks and Recs, about what more we might want to do to support engagement around youth activities, providing that structure that is so essential, where sometimes communities don't necessarily have the reach to get inside the schoolhouse, inside the Boys and Girls Clubs and other places that I think can help create that sense of structure and provide the resources and supports that young folks need. And so Events DC is in my committee, and one of the things I do is engage with them about what type of grant opportunities they make available to some of our local nonprofits who are in the trenches, in the communities, providing supports and services. And so we have been able to preserve those funds to make sure that those dollars are going out to the local community organizations that are engaging with young folks. And I'll give you just one more quick example. Just this weekend, so if you hear some kid outside, my two daughters are out back shooting hoops, right? We have the luxury of having that in our backyard. And I just came from a meeting in Ward 6 to do the Zoom. A lot of kids don't have that. So what are we doing for them? Well, this weekend, Events DC had an event where there was literally, tons of basketball teams descended on the nation's capital to play in tournaments inside the convention center. And I've never seen basketball courts inside the convention center, but there were about, I want to say somewhere in around of like 60 basketball courts inside the convention center, providing those types of activities to young folks. Not enough of them were DC based, and we need to make sure that that changes. And so I appreciate the question, Commissioner Lynch. There are a number of funds that the mayor included in her budget in the traditional agencies like DPR, like DCPS, like out of school time programming. But we need to make sure that there are other agencies that are like Events DC that similarly have resources to support the types of activities that you and I both were used to growing up in the city.
Thank you very much, Councilmember McDuffie. Appreciate it.
Commissioner
you.
Goslin?
Council member, first, I just want to be sure of your jurisdiction on committees. You oversee DEMPED, is that correct?
Amongst several agencies.
I understand. So one thing I just want to say to you is this community is involved in an effort to redevelop a community center library site, potentially with affordable housing. I ask you to press DEMPED to work with us in finding the sweet spot for that project. We are being pressed very hard to move quicker than at least this ANC commissioner thinks we should move, and that the result may be a kind of breakdown in communication and in kind of willingness to find a common ground unless DEMPED backs off. Or backs off is the wrong way to put it, works with us instead of over us. So I urge you, and I'd be happy to talk with you in more detail about that. Very practically, I want to say that I provided testimony about this commission's interest in moving forward capital budget money for both the community center and library. Unfortunately, I forgot to testify before the DPL at the DPL hearing. I have submitted my written testimony so I hope you'll look at it and take it as seriously as you take the other testimony that I did manage to do on time and at the right place. Thank you.
Sure thing, Commissioner. I appreciate you providing that testimony. And I think it's an extraordinarily important issue. And frankly, I've appreciated the way that the commission is engaged around this issue. I know these questions about development projects, housing projects, housing affordability can be really sensitive, and that there are instances where I think most instances people don't agree 100%. And so I've appreciated how you all have engaged around this, the information that you all have done, the working groups that you all have set up. Your council member has been on top of things, and I know in engaging around the development of the community center and the library, and I'm following this really closely. And frankly, to the extent DEMPED is not engaging the way you all think they should, I appreciate you sharing that with me so that I can be on top of them and make sure that they are. I know that they have been communicating with you all. I think they're engaged in the RRP process. And to the extent you want them to slow things down, if that is the consensus position of the ANC, then let's talk about what that looks like practically in terms of this project in particular, and how I can be most helpful to facilitate and support your council member in the work that you all are doing.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. So after me, it'll be Commissioner Nash, then Commissioner Zeldin. Council member at large, Kenyan McDuffie. First, I want to say congratulations on your at-large race for being elected back onto the council. I know that was hard fought, and thank you for reaching out to me to share your campaign with me as an individual here in the community. I do really, really appreciate that. My two questions are kind of old questions. One of the two things you did that I really love, Near Act and baby spawns. And I've heard you talk about some of the issues with Near Act and the lack of implementation. So I just kind of want to get a little bit about that. If you could share where we are and if you think we will ever fully implement the Near Act. And then in terms of the baby bonds funding, I know that was a big fiasco. How do you think, or do you think you will find the money to fund that?
Thank you for that, and thank you for the way you engage around the campaign. I'm glad to be back in an at-large capacity, continue to do the work that I love. So I mentioned a little bit about my background. I'm actually sitting in the house where I was raised, and it's been in my family since my grandparents brought it back in 1952. And while I am an attorney today, former trial attorney, U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, where I, amongst other things, investigated police departments where there are allegations of a pattern of practice of misconduct. I'm also a former prosecutor over in Prince George's County as well. But I also bring the experience as a young person growing up in the District of Columbia when we had open air drug markets on every other corner in my neighborhood. And we had multiple law enforcement agencies descending on communities across the District of Columbia because of the crime that we were facing and the efforts to rein in the gun violence that we were facing as well. I say that because I view my work at the council through the prism of all of those experiences collectively. And the Neighborhood Engagement Achieved Results Act was a result of a number of hearings that we had at the council when I chaired the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety several years ago. It resulted in a bill that we call the NEAR Act for short that has more than 20 titles and subtitles. I won't bore you all with all the things that are in there, but it did usher in a public health-based approach to crime prevention and intervention to augment the work that's being done by law enforcement, not to supplant it, be clear, but to provide a parallel track to try to prevent crimes from happening and to really intervene where we know that there are neighborhood beefs and other things that are occurring around communities by identifying the people most likely to commit crimes and violence or be the victims of gun violence and engaging them and putting them in a pathway for success, giving them workforce development training, and really helping to provide alternatives and supports and services so that they can be positive contributors to our local communities. Now, one of the things that initially didn't get funded was the pilot that provided mental health professionals to work with MPD to respond when there's an indication that there's a call for service that requires those mental and behavioral health professionals and not simply the Metropolitan Police Department. It has since gotten off the ground. I'm encouraged by some of the things that we're seeing around that. But we obviously need to make sure that we're balancing the work that's happening with MPD with the need to respond with behavioral mental health supports where those exist. And we do see that it exists along some of our commercial corridors, areas around Golden Triangle, downtown. If you visited areas around the, I want to call it the MCI Center, but the Capital One Arena lately, then you know what I'm talking about. If you talk to some of my colleagues who experience some of these challenges, then I'm working with them to make sure that we are providing the resources and support. So NEAR Act has been primarily funded for the most part, but we never stood up, the executive, the mayor never stood up the Office of Violence Prevention and Health Equity, which was supposed to devise a citywide plan to prevent violence. We did, however, see the Criminal Justice Coordinating Commission produce a report that pretty much outlines steps that we can take. And some of those things are being taken by our law enforcement partners, both MPD and the mayor. Some steps are being taken. But my hope is that we get more support from the federal side of our law enforcement agencies where we have less control over who gets appointed to do what. But they're nevertheless essential to a functioning criminal legal system in the District of Columbia. In terms of the Child Wealth Building Act, I'll keep this answer a lot shorter. The Office of the Chief Financial Officer made one of the most ridiculous errors in formulating the budget that they provided to the mayor. And what they did was forget to account for the growth in the Child Wealth Building Act. We call it the Baby Bonds Program for short. And just to give you a really quick synopsis of what it was, 2 years ago, I drafted this program and it was supported by my colleagues at the council. And Chairman Mendelson was absolutely essential in helping us to identify the $32 million that we used to fund the program to create accounts for babies born in the district and to families that are trapped in a cycle of poverty, making income up to 300% of the federal poverty level, essentially Medicaid eligible. Every baby would get an account and get between $500 and up to $1,000 a year in an interest-bearing account such that when they turn 18 years old, they'd have that account for them to be able to invest in themselves, to further their education, whether it's traditional college or to take up a trade, goodness knows there are not enough carpenters, electricians, and plumbers in DC proper these days. And I know when we've needed those services, my wife and I had to call all these companies outside of the district to try to get their support. They can use those funds to start a small business and essentially wealth building activity that so many of them have not had the resources to do. That program was set up, the council fully funded it 2 years ago. The CFO made an accounting error so that the money did not account for the growth in the out years in FY 26 and 27. The mayor saw the error, and rather than account for the error to make sure the funds were there, since we had already done it, they swept the money. The mayor swept the money and defunded the program. And so now the $32 million that we put in the budget, the council put in the budget 2 years ago for this transformational program, is a $54 million hole in the budget. I'm encouraged by the conversations that I've had with my colleagues about trying to identify that money, but up until this point, we don't have it yet. I have a markup on Thursday, and I've always been a glass half full type of person, so I'm optimistic about getting the money, if not 100% from my committee, then looking at my colleagues for support to fund this bill again, so that we can continue with this transformational program. The CFO has already started to implement it. There is a solicitation on the street today for a vendor to administer this program. But there's no money in FY 24 through the rest of the financial plan.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, hello, Councilmember McDuffie, and welcome to our meeting. Thank you for coming.
Commissioner.
I want to ask you about the mayor's budget and with respect to her funding to end chronic homelessness. Have you had a chance to look at that and with any care into the details?
I've had a chance to look at it generally. It is not within my jurisdiction or my committee. And so when we're engaged in the budget the way we do, there is a certain, so I don't have all the details at hand, but I'm happy to hear about if you have a particular position or are advocating that the council take a particular position.
Okay, well, I would ask you to, if you can, to take a look at this, because number one, well, I asked the mayor about 3 particulars when she was here, and because there have been cuts to certain areas of ending and helping chronic homeless people. Her answer was we're under budget constraints. And so that's basically her answer for why these cuts took place. However, she has also said that permanent supportive housing ultimately saves the city money. If you put people in housing, it's in the end cheaper. And so I don't really understand the logic here. The 3 areas I asked her about and which she said, well, they're just, there isn't money for it, are number 1, there is no funding right now for something the council passed, and that is 10 public restrooms in the district. The council passed that law, but it hasn't been funded. So that's number 1. Number 2, there are no increases to permanent supportive housing as there have been in past years. And as the mayor has said, it's cheaper for the city if we can do this in the long run. And number 3, these 2 are related. Right now there's a bottleneck. People get vouchers, but we have trouble placing them. There is no additional money to try to solve that bottleneck. And that was the reason for not increasing permanent supportive housing. Well, we have this bottleneck. Well, that's just that's a vicious circle. So those are 3 areas I would ask you to have a look at, but just in general, to me, it's short-sighted as well as inhumane to be making these cuts to our most vulnerable citizens. That's it.
I thank you for that, Commissioner Nash. And while I stated earlier, I didn't have all the details on hand, I am aware of some of the concerns that you raised, because we have been engaged with advocates over the course of the budget process who have raised very similar, if not the same issues that you just articulated around, permanent supportive housing, emergency rental assistance, and some of the other funds that have remained flat in the mayor's proposed budget, and obviously need more resources. I know it's been a priority both for the council members who have oversight in the committee, and I think they've stated publicly that it is. I know the chairman has similarly stated publicly that it's priority. So to the extent I could support the efforts to make sure that we're shoring up those resources that are in the mayor's proposed budget that remain flat. And if you just look at the numbers, they do look pretty substantial. But to your point, while it might be close to 150 million for performance supportive housing and local rent supplement program, those funds are really flat year over year, and they need more resources given the extent of the challenges that we face with chronic homelessness in the District of Columbia.
Commissioner Zeldin?
Hi, Commissioner McDuffie. I have two asks, and maybe we could take them offline because time is running out here. One is in respect of not having enough plumbers and the like in the District of Columbia. I used to teach at Chamberlain Vocational High School, and bringing back Chamberlain and other vocational high schools would go a long way to helping that shortage. And so if there's anything that we can do to work together on that, the closing of those schools, I think, was a tragic mistake. So that's my first.
I would love to, before you get to your second one, I just want to say quickly, I would love to engage with you around that. I would love to get your information. And I'll just tell you quickly, I know Chamberlain. My uncle through marriage went to Chamberlain. My granddad went to Armstrong. My grandmother, I believe, went to vocational school. My dad although he's passed, a 1967 graduate of Bell Vocational School. So he was an electrician. So I know the value of getting a good trade, and those skills, even in this market, are absolutely essential still today.
Yep. The second thing is, while it's not in our ANC, I've been working I'm in my second year of working with Coach Lou and Coach Nat at the Emory Recreation Center.
Right.
I've been helping them with programming, raising money for the nonprofit end of it, the Friends of Emory Rec. And I'd like to talk to you about things that we may be able to coordinate with respect to grants and the like for Emory, because their programming is exactly on point of keeping kids safe. I think they do as good a job as any in the city, and I think Coach Lou is a miracle worker.
No, I know Emory pretty well. My kids went to camp one summer there, and I will tell you, I'll say this: I've been a huge advocate for increasing funds and grants to organizations that engage with our parks and recs. And for years, I was one of the few council members who had a constituent service fund, but I would get a lot of outreach from organizations who have kids who would win a local championship, football, basketball, baseball, pick it, but then couldn't afford to pay for the travel to go out of town for their kids to participate, right? And I know fundraising is absolutely essential, builds character, and I did it. I had my share of car washes and candy sales and popcorn sales growing up. But particularly in the years where we were having all these surpluses, we have to have more structure around the resources that get to these organizations, to our rec centers, particularly those who are doing a phenomenal job with engaging under-resourced communities and kids and families. And DPR, the mayor, to her credit, I will give her credit for this one, because I've been putting money, working with Councilmember White, trying to make sure there are resources in the budget for these kids and these organizations. But she has it's called Recreation for All, I think the program is called. And they are giving grants, and they actually put a significant amount of money in the budget previously, and it's in this current budget, so that organizations can apply for those grant funds to pay for things, different types of things, out of town travel. If you need equipment, whatever the need is within a nice broad category of needs, you can apply for and get grant resources for that. Now, the challenge is some of these organizations don't have the resources or the skills on hand to even apply or have the structure to be fiscal agents, to be on the receiving end of some of these grants, although they do a phenomenal job of engaging young folks. So Commissioner, I love to be able to engage with you around that.
Right, that's great, because I talked to Tommy Jones about this program, and I'm going to meet with the Emory folks in the next week or so. I'll give you a call. Maybe you can come by it. But just to your point of fundraising, I've been trying to take it to another level. I've been able, through friendships with these people, to get Vontae and Vernon Davis to donate the football uniforms for the Emory Rec team. And also with Vontae and Vernon, we did a huge turkey giveaway for Thanksgiving. So there's a lot that can be done way beyond, selling lemonade. So I'd be happy to help.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And have you help me. Sorry.
And maybe we could talk about some of the gender inequities that exist when we have that conversation. Being a girl dad myself, I've now sort of learned a lot more around some of the gender inequities that exist in terms of how some of these sneaker companies and others will fund boys programs, right? Because they see the value proposition there, but don't do the same for girls programs. And so when we have a conversation, remind me to bring that up. Or maybe you don't even have to remind me. I'm sure I'll bring it up.
Yeah, because one of the things that I raised money for was the cheer team.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
For that very reason. Yeah, and they won all championships.
Yes.
Okay. What's the best way for me to reach Lisa? Will you tell me the best way to reach?
Yep.
All right, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Hi, thank you, Councilmember McDuffie, for joining us. I don't have a question, but because it's on our agenda, we actually have a lot of Murch Elementary School parents here tonight. ANC 3F passed a resolution on the Murch. They have a unique, budget issue. So I hope, we're going to discuss it soon and hopefully have a resolution for you and other council members. But I just wanted to highlight it. Hopefully the resolution will speak for itself. But thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm familiar with that. My staff took a meeting with some Murch parents. I've visited Murch several times. One of my daughters attended Murch briefly. I know it well. It's a beautiful facility, but it is indeed. There are a lot of students there, and they need, sounds like, more teachers. And so I'm happy to work with the ANC and those parents there to address what sounds like a very critical need. And I know I talked to Councilmember Fruman about it too. So for sure. Thanks for raising that.
Thank you. And just want to give an opportunity for any community members. If you have a question for Councilmember McDuffie, we have about 5 minutes left. If there's any community questions out there.
And just really quickly, while we're taking the hands, Commissioner, Chairwoman, Jonathan on my team reminded me that I have a May 1st tour at Murch School. So I'll be there next week.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we must have answered all the community's questions.
We asked all the community's questions.
Yeah, asked, right. You answered, we asked. Councilmember McDuffie, I hope this is not the last conversation with ANC 34G and the broader Chevy Chase community. Thank you so much. I also want to give a special shout out to Jonathan McNair on your staff. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Did a great job getting me prepped up for you. So we hope to have you again. This is really fantastic conversation. I appreciate it a lot.
I look forward to it. I love chatting with you all. I look forward to engaging you all in person. If you all are having events and things like that, any way that I can be supportive of you all, your council member, I'm here to engage, and I look forward to following up. It is absolutely not going to be the last time you see me, and hopefully you'll want to see more. So take care. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Okay. The next topic on the agenda, turn it over to Commissioner Gosselin, the discussion and possible vote on a space permit for, I don't want to mispronounce her last name, Eveline.
Eveline Ngassa. Yeah.
Okay.
Eveline is online, and you could turn on your camera This should be a very simple issue. Eveline Ngassa opened Wine and Organic at 5712, 5714 Connecticut Avenue Northwest. That is about as far up as the commercial buildings go on Connecticut towards the circle. Unfortunately, she was courageous to do it. A wonderful wine. I have become a regular there. Unfortunately, there is not very much foot traffic. Chevy Chase Main Street is trying to help. You heard that there are events connected to the lighting of the fountain will be up at that end, but there needs to be a more of a solution. And Eveline is proposing, Eveline has already outfitted a coffee and bakery and is proposing to start a sidewalk cafe. I've sent to the commissioners the dimensions and some elevations showing what it would look like. She has filed with the District Department of Transportation's Public Space Committee for a permit to use a portion of the sidewalk for this. And I think that anybody who has been up to the Citibank and so forth and seen next door the Goodyear storefront that has never had anybody in it, as far as I can see, has to have sympathy and also have a sense of admiration for this entrepreneur's courage to press forward. I think we ought to support this resolution and her permit before the Public Space Committee. Eveline, do you want to say anything? There you are. There you are.
Hi, I was on mute. I'm sorry. I was saying hi to everyone and thank you, Peter. I think you said it all. You said it even better than me. So I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Okay. Do commissioners have questions?
Are you going to put the motion on the floor? For
Oh, yes. I move that we vote to approve this resolution and support Eveline Ngassi's application before the Public Space Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Good. Okay.
If there's any questions?
Just to Eveline, I walked by your shop and have been in your shop. I want to commend you for your efforts. It takes a lot of courage to open a small business, particularly during difficult times when you first got started. And I wish you the very best. Tell us just very briefly so far, what's your experience been with the community? And of course, how this Commissioner Gosselin just addressed how he believes the cafe will help you. But if there's anything you could add to that, I'd certainly be interested.
Well, that's the main point of me trying to open that sidewalk cafe, because what I've noticed so far, we've been there 9 months. And so what I've noticed is I don't really have that much foot traffic in the morning. And I understand people usually will want to shop for wine in the afternoon or the evening. So we wanted to have something that would draw people in early on in the day. So that's the reason why we came up with the idea of getting the bakery open.
Right. Great.
Peter, did you say there are other stores also going in where Roll was and other?
I think
things that might draw traffic?
Eveline, help me here. I think actually a restaurant, a Southern cooking restaurant, is going in the Goodyear space.
That is correct. It's called Due South, and they have about 34 other stores throughout the nation. It's Due South. It's Southern cuisine.
Yeah. So those two spaces. I mean, Capital One. Eveline has taken over the Capital One space, but that was dead letter for several years. And what was in the Goodyear space before? I can't remember, but Goodyear basically rented space and it's serving as a billboard, not as an actual. I've seen no one ever in there buying tires, right? So actually there's the real chance with Eveline's store, Wine and Organic, with the coffee and bakery place that she's opening beside it, and with this new restaurant, that we will actually get real life up that end of Connecticut Avenue, and that's all for the good. So I hope that I move that we go to a vote unless people have other questions. All in favor of the resolution supporting Eveline Ngassa and the unanimous, you got it. Good. I will convey that to the Public Space Committee tomorrow. Eveline.
Peter, one thing,
Thank you,
before
Peter.
Evelyn leaves, is Evelyn also considering, which I think would be great for the bakery and even the wines place, an outdoor patio style place like we see?
That's what we just approved.
No, I thought it was talking about an indoor space.
No, it's sidewalk cafe. Yeah.
It's a
Just out.
sidewalk cafe.
Oh, when you said sidewalk, I thought it meant implied indoor. Sorry.
No, the tip off was sidewalk. All right.
Thank
done.
you.
Eveline, appreciate your support of the community and look forward to that sidewalk cafe for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Ferguson for discussion and possible vote on products made from force feeding resolution.
Yes, thank you. If we could also make Max Broad a co-host. This resolution we're going to discuss is on foie gras, or the force feeding of animals, geese or ducks. And not everyone knows what foie gras is, or we have different levels. So I'm glad we have Max Broad and his colleague Addie Lance from DC Voters for Animals. They're going to give a brief presentation. But just before I hand it over, the context for this generally is, we have a lot of animal lovers in the district. They come from different perspectives. Concerns from residents bubble up to the DC Council. Years ago, we passed a law cracking down on the illegal ivory trade in DC because we have residents who don't want to see elephants hunted to death for their ivory tusks. We've recently passed bird-safe building design standards to protect birds. So we have a long line of animal advocacy and residents speaking up to that. So we're going to learn a little bit more from Max Broad and his colleague, and then we'll talk about this specific resolution.
Hello, ANC 34G. Really nice to be with you here tonight. My name is Max Broad. As Zach says, I am with DC Voters for Animals. We're working to lift up the politicians and policies doing most for animals. It's nice to see some friendly faces here, Chair Gore, and of course Commissioner Ferguson. And this is my colleague Addie. And Addie's from Farm. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Addison Lance. I'm the program director at the Farm Animal Rights Movement, which has been an active organization in the DMV for 48 years now.
So we're going to go ahead. We're going to keep this really brief. Just a quick overview of the issue on foie gras, something that we see as potentially a plaque mark on DC's fine dining. And we're here to get you to consider, this question for yourself. Just to start things off, does anybody know who this person is?
Ty Cobb.
Ty Cobb, very good. Yeah, so this is a picture of a baseball player from over 100 years ago. He's known pretty much for two things. One, he's known for being one of the best baseball players of all time, but something that really overshadows his career as a really significant baseball player is that he is known for immense bigotry. And he has this reputation for just being really, really bigoted and prejudiced. And I bring this up to share as an example of, how our accomplishments may characterize us, but it's our reputation that defines us. And that's just a sense of, what we're out to present and talk about today in terms of DC's culinary scene.
Yeah, so specifically what we're going to talk about is what foie gras is. Most people are pretty unfamiliar with it because luckily it is a very uncommon, what is referred to as a delicacy, but really foie gras translates directly in French to fatty liver. That is because it is obtained through gavage, which is where ducks and geese are force fed until their livers are 10 times their natural their size, in fact, giving them fatty liver disease intentionally. So of course, that's incredibly bad for them, but also it can cause esophagus injuries, choking on their own vomit, the inability to walk, and extreme confinement.
I personally find it very fascinating that these animals are designed in nature to be able to grow their liver so many times so that they can migrate long distances, which is really, from a biology standpoint, very fascinating. However, it's also been abused by the farmers who are producing foie gras. Just so you all know, there's been immense popularity across the board for supporting resolutions like this. You can see all these countries have have passed legislation, passed bans on foie gras sales. It's even spread to the US, California, the entire state, New York City, other places have dabbled and currently dabbling with it. Even retailers are taking action. They're eschewing foie gras because of its reputation. And sure enough, we've seen big support from the community with a petition in support of this, in support of moving beyond foie gras, and nearly 35,000 people have signed it. Go ahead, Hattie.
Yeah, it's over 30,000, and it is a local petition on change.org. It's not a national petition, so 30,000 signatures is seen as one of the top signed petitions on the site. There's been a lot of support for it. We're very excited about that.
So, what are we looking for in a resolution? These are things, the values that, a resolution and the ANC can stand for in terms of compassion, in terms of a humane food system, in terms of protecting animals, and, show that the ANC and the neighborhood can stand against exploitation, animal abuse, and unnecessary cruelty. So, we really thank you for your time and your consideration. As we said, we wanted to keep this short.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's under the 5 minutes. And if it makes sense, I think we can get on the resolution. If people have questions, for Addie and Max, they can also direct it to them. But, we can also start the discussion and have commissioners discuss, and then community. So the resolution, which I will post in the chat now, but it's been up on our website all week. I sent it out on social media to try, get people's attention. It's essentially laying out the background of foie gras, what it is. There's a lot of citations. You can see, the American Veterinary Association has weighed in on this. And the resolution ultimately calls for our commission urging the DC Council to join with California to proactively create a culinary culture that does not include foie gras. So I'll open up to questions. I see we've got Commissioner Lynch.
Let's, Zach, before we do that, let's put the resolution. So first make the motion for the resolution, and then we need a second before we get into discussion.
Sure. Do you want to put up on the screen? Would that help or no?
No, you just say, just move it in.
Okay, I'm moving to pass the ANC 34G resolution on products made from force feeding.
I second.
All right, so discussion, and we can have I see Commissioner Lynch first.
Thank you, Zach, for proposing this, and Max and Addison, thanks for being here. Have you, because I think we established that there's not a restaurant in our ANC that has foie gras. Have you heard from restaurants that do serve it, and what do you know of their reaction to this proposal?
Yeah, great question. We've been reaching out to all the restaurants that we can. We've been doing immense restaurant outreach, spending just countless volunteer hours reaching out to restaurants, and on both ends, right? Restaurants who don't serve foie gras and cultivating their support, and restaurants that do serve foie gras. And of course, the ones that do serve it are going to be have an interest in maintaining it. And that's where we're saying, you know, they're in a significant minority. And, you know, passing a resolution would kind of, for the restaurants that who do currently serve it and would like to move beyond it, they would be in a position to, it would even the playing field so that they have the leg room to stop serving foie gras.
And we've seen this farm worked with a fine dining restaurant in Northern Virginia to develop a faux gras dish that they then put on their menu beside their foie gras dish that actually outsold it and was priced higher. So we're seeing that the humane alternatives perform as well, if not better. So removing foie gras as an option throughout the district would encourage and, like Max said, level the playing field for those kinder options.
And I'll just
Go ahead, Zach.
I'll just add, you know, I think it's DC Voters for Animal has a veg restaurant week coming up, and it's a really great way for restaurants to try out, you know, if they have an item they're not sure about, they can put it out there, see if they get a lot of, you know, excitement about it or their current plant-friendly dishes. So there's a lot of like positive, you know, let's go solicit our small businesses being done.
And then just one follow-up question. Do you envision, if this was banned in DC, that there would be a fine if people served it, or what would be the punishment?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's in the traditional method, right? You need to have some sort of enforcement. We definitely want to keep it on the civil level. We don't want to move to, you know, criminal liability here. So we feel like that's kind of a softer way to approach it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question.
All right. I'm going to go to Commissioner Sherman. I think he is next.
Yeah, thank you, Addison. And Max, thanks for coming. I appreciate the presentation. Zach, this is a question for you, and it's a question for our commission in terms of where our jurisdiction lies over a matter like this, given what Commissioner Lynch has already noted, that is, no restaurant, as far as we're aware, in our ANC is serving foie gras at the moment. Obviously, there's no production of it here. So we're addressing this issue from the standpoint of a neighborhood advisory commission. Speak to me about our jurisdiction.
Sure. So when the DC Council passes legislation, you know, affecting, you know, downtown anywhere, our voters have a say in all parts of the city. You know, the ivory trade was affecting antique stores. I don't know if we have antique stores, but we're three voters, you know, Chevy Chase voters get a weigh in on citywide issues. And, you know, I think our council wants to hear what we think about potentially legislative issues. You know, they don't prevent us from weighing in on issues because of course I leave ANC 3 and 4G a lot, and I go to other parts of the city, and people can go to other restaurants. So it impacts all of us because we all are residents of the city across the borders. And of course, you know, restaurants could start serving foie gras. And, you know, we could have it's served in grocery stores. I'm not sure if it is or not, but that's another venue.
Right. Talk to me as well about this being an issue like many other social, political, humanitarian issues that we could be concerned about as an advisory neighborhood commission in our little part of the world. And we could spend a lot of time talking about those, and there would be nothing to keep us from taking these up and voicing our concerns about them and passing resolutions on them. So speak to me about that in terms of where we draw the line on addressing these issues and whether or not we get into matters that are somewhat well beyond our scope.
Well, I wouldn't speak to what other commission. I'd say every commissioner has to decide those lines for themselves. I don't think we can, I can say what your lines are. I don't think, you know, so I think it's up to every commissioner to decide that.
No, I'm asking you in terms of how you see that and where what would be the next issue that we might want to address, for example, that is of a social, political, humanitarian nature?
For me, I would listen to residents, listen to what I hear as an advisory neighborhood commission, and I go from there. I heard about this issue. I didn't invent it. We have 30,000 signatures. I don't think that's coming out of nowhere. So for me, this is not, you know, an isolated, unconnected to ANC 3-4G. This is something that, you know, I heard from a constituent of yours that they were support this resolution. I've heard from constituents of mine, they support this resolution. If we have no support, I would say we shouldn't be introducing resolutions that have zero support or have zero interest in, if it's unconnected to the DC Council or the mayor's office or the government, I'd say that might be a line for me. I don't know.
Right, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, Zach, thank you for bringing this up. I'm all for it, but I wanted to ask a little bit about that phrase in your resolution, a culinary culture you talk about. That's a little bit loosey-goosey, pardon the pun, but I have seen foie gras, I believe, at Calvert Woodley, where I shop. And so it's not only necessarily at restaurants. Calvert Woodley is a very high-end deli, and I'm pretty sure they sell it. So what about that?
Sure. I think as ANC, Bruce was mentioning how we proceed. And I think it's, kind of useful to be not overly detailed because we're not drafting regulations. We're not worried about implementation. We're not governing, the A and ANC is advisory. So I think it's good to give general principles and, what we're hearing from residents and not try to get too into the weeds. So I think it certainly is vague, culinary culture, but I think, we understand the direction we're heading. We're not trying to write the legislation. That's up for the DC Council later if they choose to do it. Again, it's up to them. We passed the ivory ban or the cracking down on ivory trade. And, if we were writing a resolution for that, I wouldn't keep it very specific because that's not really our role.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Do we want to have, is it Commissioner Gosselin? Yeah.
I just say that this commission has an immense number of very tough local issues before it. I don't understand why we need to speak on this one, in my opinion.
Commissioner Gore? Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Me and Commissioner Gosselin have been discussing this, and I am glad we're speaking on this. People could say that about our resolution on OSSI, our resolution on homelessness, some of the other resolutions that we've done. Each commissioner, and that's the beauty of running for ANC, because you run on your platform, you run on your values, and you run on what you want to bring to the neighborhood and the District of Columbia. And all that gets wrapped into your work as an ANC commissioner and enlightening the community on some of the issues that are occurring, not only in our neighborhood, which obviously is our jurisdiction, but the entirety of the city is our jurisdiction as well. So personally, I would like to thank you, Zach, for bringing this resolution to the table to the ANC. I had mentioned before as a candidate, I've had the pleasure of taking a questionnaire from this group. And I think, Max, I sent an email to you specifically saying that that was one of the best questionnaires that I, completed as a candidate. And I really meant that. I love the work of the group and the issues that they are trying to raise in the city that frankly, we don't have awareness to as residents in the community. So please continue to push this agenda regardless of the outcome. And I do want to remind commissioners that, Zach brought up the ivory trade. I also looked up the issues and I looked up food bans across the state. We have bans in cosmetics. We have bans in a lot of things, but kind of similar to this process ban in terms of cruelty to animals is, to me, a good comparison is the ban on shark fins. So shark fins are banned in several states in the United States because the process of making shark fin soup is very cruel to the animal. You basically cut off their fins and you throw them back in the ocean, and that causes them obviously to die. So I would kind of consider this along the same lines. It's an extremely cruel process. And, you know, we want our city to be a leader in all areas, not just in human rights, but in animal rights too. And sometimes that takes us, you know, it gives us an opportunity to take a hard look at some of the things that we're inadvertently supporting and that we maybe should take a second look at. In addition to that, I just wanted to add that the ANC recently started a ANC public comment feedback form. We did receive 2 community comments on the feedback form regarding this. Both of them were in support of this resolution. Those residents, if I'm not mistaken, lived along Connecticut Avenue. So they're, if not within ANC 34G, they're very close to it. One of the comments was foie gras is produced by force feeding ducks and geese through a tube to grow their liver. I consider this to be cruel. And the second one was foie gras as a result of force feeding ducks and geese, an extreme cruelty that should be banned in our times. DC should follow suit of New York, San Francisco, and the UK. Please ban this product in our city. So I think it's important for the commissioners to hear those comments in case you didn't get a chance to read that comment form. Thank you, Zach.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Zeldin and then Gosselin.
So 2 quick things in the interest of time. One, having not eaten hoofed animals since 1976, I favor anything that is less cruel to animals. Secondly, with respect to our mandate, as we've discussed this previously within our ANC, I took an oath of office to act within the best interests of the city as a whole. This is a topic that is in the best interests of the city as a whole, as well as our ANC. And so I'm going to vote in favor of it, Zach.
Commissioner Gosselin?
Chair Gore raised the question of values, said that we bring our values to the table. I think this is an utterly cruel process. I also think this ANC has a very tough job on the very local issues. I'm going to vote no, but I'm not voting for animal abuse and unkindness in doing so. I'm voting for focus, and I want that understood. There's many issues that come before this ANC. The value question keeps coming up, and some values we can act on in some forums, and some, I would argue, deserve other forums. And so I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sherman.
Yeah, in a similar way, I'm going to abstain on this. I do not in any way, shape, or form support force feeding of animals. It's a question for me, again, of what is within our purview. I have, as you know, we've talked about this among ourselves many times, a different take on what the mission of this ANC is and how far our authority extends. I think, as we've talked about, this is not something that is either produced or consumed or served in our ANC. So I'll vote to abstain.
Do we have any?
Bruce, one thing, it may well be consumed in our ANC.
No, I misspoke. It consumed, yes. I mean served, sorry.
Okay, do we have any community comments before we move to a vote? Or any other commissioner comments? Jim?
I want to, I was about to say that I know that it is consumed because it has been sold at Calvert Woodley. Many people from our ANC shop there, buy it, and eat it. And this is unacceptable to me. And it is something that is in the best interest of the city as well as the planet. Thank you, Zach, for bringing it. I cannot imagine it not being within our purview to take action on this. So thank you for bringing it up. I will be voting in favor of it.
I know we've got a lot on our agenda tonight, so do we have any community comments? I appreciate all the commissioners' input and your time. Okay, seeing no community comments. Are we ready to move for a vote?
Yep, call for the vote.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. I see 5 hands. All those opposed? 2-1, Commissioner Gosselin, and then all those abstaining, 1, Commissioner Sherman. All right, thank you all. Thank you, Max and Addie, for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the vote was 5-1-1. The motion passes. Resolution passes. Thank you. All right. Next up on our agenda is
Murch.
Yep.
Okay, this is also me.
Yours too.
Thank you for the Murch parents who have stayed with us 8:45 p.m. So we have a resolution about the budget situation at Murch Elementary School. They've faced a unique situation where they've seen 48 students on unexpected growth just since the start of the school year. That's over 2 full classes of kids that have come since the start of the school year. The Murch families are, understandably concerned, especially for the younger grades. 28 kids in a classroom, especially for first graders. It's one thing for 5th graders, but for 1st and 2nd graders, there's, going to the bathroom, tying shoes. It's much more difficult for the teachers and for the students in those lower grades. So Murch parents and caregivers have signed an open letter. 348 Murch parents and caregivers signed an open letter to the council with, I think, a very reasonable and specific ask for about $320,000 that would fund 2 full-time teaching positions to help alleviate this. So ANC 3F passed this resolution last week. Our ANC, Murch is physically within ANC 3F, but we have many Murch families in 3-4G. My entire SMD is a zone for Murch. Commissioner Nash has parts of his district zone, and then others come to Murch from the lottery or other ways. So we have a lot of interest in it. So I'll get to the resolution. It goes to that background of what's happened. And it ultimately calls for the council to allocate an additional $230,000 and $324 for the upcoming school year. So to move along, I'll move to adopt this resolution, then we can have discussion.
Second.
Okay, I'll go to commissioners. Do we have any questions, concerns? All right, I'm not seeing any. Does anyone from Commissioner Lynch, then Commissioner Sherman?
Thank you, Zach, for raising this issue and supporting Murch. I'm for it. I think something that we need to also acknowledge, and I sent this over email, and we've brought it up in other ANC meetings, is that if Murch is in this position, we can guarantee that there are plenty of other schools across the city in the same situation. There was a recent article in the Post where a school of 1,600 people has one therapist, school therapist. Coming out of the pandemic, I'm a teacher, so teachers are stressed, teachers are overworked. We're having the greatest amount of teachers across the country and in DC leave the profession. Kids need all the support they can get coming out of the pandemic, with teachers, counselors, therapists, staff, everything. And we're facing budget cuts across the board in DC education. And I'm all for these 2 teachers at Murch. I texted with some friends that teach at Murch. and they said 100% we need this. We're overcrowded, we've got big classes, and it's not effective, it's not working. But from our standpoint and our position where we are in the city, we often, to my mind, get the things that we demand because of the people that are so well connected in this area and are able to organize and able to raise money and able to take time off of work to do all these things. And there's plenty of schools and communities across the city that just do not have that wherewithal and that face the exact same issues and probably have situations where they need even more than maybe the Murch community or a Lafayette community needs. And so I think we also need to use our voice to really push the city, push the mayor to get more funding for schools all over the city. So I just wanted to point that out. And if there's a way that we can weave it into the resolution, just to say that, yes, we do need these 2 teachers at Murch, but we also acknowledge that this situation is probably happening in other places, and we know it's happening in other places. We've got to support schools all over. I think that would be enormously helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, and before I go out, I mentioned we were going to strike paragraph 8. We had talked about that earlier, so it's a friendly amendment on striking clause 8 about Murch attracting families. Commissioner Sherman, I think you're next.
Yep, thank you, Zach. I see a representative from the Murch Home and School Association on the Zoom call. Could someone speak to independent fundraising at Murch that I know at Lafayette and other schools has sought to provide supplemental funding, obviously, for teachers and so forth?
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Kimi Wetterauer. I'm with the Murch HSA. So we thank you, everybody, for acknowledging this resolution. We on the HSA do fundraising, but we do not use it for personnel. So what we've done is we have taken any money raised throughout the year and we've pulled all the money we can out of the DCPS budget that's non-personnel, and we are funding things such as custodial supplies and cleaning, solutions, paper. We order paper pallets. We have all kinds of things that allows the DCPS budget to go as far as possible for personnel. I've heard about 10 years ago, the HSA was paying for some aids, instructional aids, but it got, people have said it got messy and there were some legal implications. It kind of created a 2-tier system of staff at the school that was not equitable. And it left people feeling like they didn't know if they had a job year to year. They didn't have the same benefits or even vacation days, that sort of a thing. So we decided at the HSA that we weren't really supportive of funding positions, and we wanted to take other expenses away
Right.
instead.
Okay, thank you.
But good question.
Go to Commissioner Nash.
Yep. Do we know if we are able to get this funding, is there space for these additional classes at Murch?
Yes.
Yes, that's a great question too. Because Murch underwent a renovation about 5 years ago, the physical space is there and there are empty classrooms sitting in the hallways for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade currently. So we have, classes of up to 28 students in 1st grade right now, crammed into 4 classes, and there's an empty classroom sitting right next door. So that would be available for use immediately.
Wow, that's a powerful situation. Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Let's go to Commissioner Zeldin and Gosselin.
So my question probably is for Kimmy, unless you know the answer, Zach, which is, because I'm concerned about whether this is going to be repeated at Lafayette next year. I know Lafayette lost a lot of students during the pandemic. They went private. And we'll hear from Dr. B when she appears in May. But what I'm wondering, Kimmy, is what accounts for such a quick and large jump in enrollment?
So we're finding that really just how Murch is situated within Ward 3 is accounting for that. So we have, first of all, we have people who are moving within the city, like Capitol Hill, that want to come and be here for Deal and Jackson Reed. We have a lot of embassy families that, live in the area. We have voucher program families that are coming in. So a lot of the large apartment buildings that line Connecticut Avenue that feed into Murch have more density, and I think it's more attractive in terms of what the rent might be. So the residential makeup of Murch in terms of where people can live is a differentiating factor versus Lafayette, for instance, that's more single family homes, or it doesn't have the large apartment buildings.
We've got some on Connecticut Avenue, but what about, I understand growth. I favor the amendment. I'm just curious. It sounded, Zach, as if we were saying that there was an unexpected spike. And that's all I'm curious about, what accounts for the unexpected spike, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, and I think that what happened this year, they're already kind of thinking what's going to happen next year. But the numbers that they take for projections are taken in October 1st, I believe. And we were already above the projection for this current year on October 1st. Then they added 40 more students for next year. But because there have been so many mid-year arrivals based on the things that I suggested, we are already above next year's projection already. So we're already at 670 students, but they only projected 662 for us for next year. So I don't have the exact breakdown of, how many students are coming from this part and that part, but like it's the embassies, it's people, even State Department that come back mid-year. We had someone join my daughter's first grade class about a month ago. They were State Department moved back. It's an increase in the voucher programs, allowing residents to move into the neighborhood. And then I think it's just people moving into the city who choose this area of the city.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? I was also going to make another friendly amendment just to align our resolution with ANC 3Fs. They just slightly modified a line about the early language learners. I sent that around. If we have no more commissioner comments, do we have anyone from the community that wants to speak? Commissioner Lynch?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Do you think you could send it one more time, the final document that you worked on? And again, I would, or could you point out maybe in the chat where we are expressing that schools across the city should have all that they need?
Sure. So if you look at paragraph 3, I'll paste in the chat.
Thank you very much.
Pasting this in the chat. This resolution recognizes that every DC, the success of all DCPS neighborhood schools are critical to the future of our neighborhoods. I think we support all DCPS schools. We want to see them all succeed. And I'd love to work on an amendment because I think, if we talk to our residents, they want more funding for all our schools, not just this one school here, but they want it for citywide. And we understand we have enormous inequities in our city. And it shouldn't, we should be having abundance for our schools and not scarcity.
Okay, so I would just add the next sentence, which is, and should access the full funding they need to thrive. And
sure, does any commissioner object? I don't object. Okay, I think I accept that as a friendly amendment.
thank you, Zach.
Yeah. Commissioner Sherman, see your hand up. You're muted.
Yes, sir. We're acknowledging by way of that language that Commissioner Lynch just referenced our support for schools across the district, but we're also recognizing that budgets are always limited, funds are always limited, and we're advocating for Murch in that context. Correct? I mean, that just to take stock of what we're doing.
I mean, I don't think we're saying the budget cannot be increased or decreased. We're not taking a position on that.
Right. Can I ask, Kimmy, just back to the fundraising that you do at Murch, could you tell us how much that is on an annual basis?
We raise close to $300,000 a year. And just for context, the price of a DCPS teacher for budgeting purposes is $115,000. So, we had talked about the idea of trying to fundraise for this on our own. It just didn't seem like, one, it really had the support of past history, and then our money just really, it's not going to cover it. Like we could do that and nothing else.
Right. But just back to the decision that you made not to use funds that you raised separately to pay for teachers' salaries. That's a policy issue, correct? There's nothing preventing you from doing that. That's something that you just found was workable.
It seems quite complicated.
I was told that yeah, it was something that happened long before I was there, that it sounded policy oriented, but it also, we had told that there were legal implications on it, which we haven't looked into it. I know that other schools do it, so that must be a possibility.
Right. I just know from our experience now, some years ago at Lafayette, that the annual fundraising did pay for teacher salaries. There were teachers in science and elsewhere that those funds supported that otherwise would not, that education, that instruction would otherwise not have been available.
Could I jump in here, Bruce, for just a second?
Sure.
I think we all need to take a step back. We don't get community organizations to pay for doctors at hospitals. We don't pool money individually to pay for policemen. The idea that we're even talking about this as like a real viable option, that parents are pooling money to get teachers at a public school, is sort of crazy. And it shows the lack of investment in DCPS schools. And it's wonderful. The parents that you all are the work that you're doing, keep going and help your schools out. Absolutely 100%. But just by virtue of us discussing, like, could you pay for a teacher? Can you get the teacher that you need? Could you, scrape together some money and figure it out? We shouldn't have to ask that question. We shouldn't have to do that. And we're put in a position where we are. We're the capital of the United States of America here. And that should ring as somewhat crazy. So just wanted to put that out there. And again, Murch folks, thanks for what you're doing. And I support you getting your new teacher. But we've got to somehow, some way, come to a point and say, this is nuts. We had a 16-year-old who carjacked someone recently. 16-year-olds don't naturally do that. They're not inclined to go rob people and steal like that. They're not hardened criminals, but they're brought to that situation likely because a teacher didn't catch them, a coach didn't catch them. There wasn't the programming in other schools across the city, or there wasn't the support needed to keep that kid away from that decision. And here we are talking about getting parents to pay for public school teachers. It's too much. So anyway, thanks for listening. And I hope you get the teachers, but I hope we send this message across the city as well.
Okay, Commissioner Gore or Chair Gore.
Yeah, I just want to move the commission along. We've had multiple commissioners that had multiple statements. The only thing that I'm going to add to this, that I'm truly in support of the resolution. And, you know, one of the things I also think we should not lose sight of, which our task force on racism has a wonderful education report. Commissioners, if you have not read it, please do so, because it talks about the inequities in education funding. And it was a terrific, wonderful report that has a lot of information about just this issue that our task force or Race and Social Equity Committee is hopefully going to follow up on. So I want to move the questions right now to community. Allison, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, my name is Allison Fitzsimmons, and I'm a first grade parent at Murch. I actually live in Ward 4, so I'm James Nash. I'm in James Nash's area, and so this is kind of special to to my area also. But I want to also reiterate on the idea of funding out of our own pockets, just how inequitable that would look to the entire city to see this group of people going there and saying, well, we'll just throw a bunch of our money at it. I just think that's, and granted, I mean, that's even considering that you're assuming that most people in our community pay for that. I mean, they're a very diverse community, which we absolutely love. Think that 18 different countries in the classroom. We have, my daughter's class has a girl who speaks Russian, a child who's two English, Spanish speakers. And the kids have a lot of unique needs at Murch. And I know that Lafayette does have apartment buildings in it, but we're talking about south of Military, which I'm sure you guys have all kind of been south of Military to Van Ness, but there are apartment buildings lining Connecticut with high-rise apartment buildings with lots of density, and we absolutely love all of the students that come from there. But that just means there's a lot of influx during the year with people moving that might come from various areas. I know the Air Force Base, kids can choose where they go to school. We have the voucher program that's kind of a new thing that's been instituted. And we also have migrants that have been coming into our community, which makes it just the richer, but we need to meet those kids where they are. And my daughter's class in particular has had severe violence issues, physical aggression in class, like really dangerous situations where, you know, first graders, you have to remember they're 7, 6, and 7 years old. They're babies still. They've just learned how to go to the bathroom. So these are not 5th graders. These are not 17-year-olds that we're talking about. And I just think it's really important. And I agree, every school should have the funding. And I understand that the mayor made some serious budget cuts. And that's why we are asking for a specific number for a specific purpose that we know we can accommodate the space. We have a very specific ask, and that's why we're coming to you guys. Thank you.
Allison, would you ask for it for across the city, for schools across the city as well?
So Peter, I hear what you're saying, and maybe it actually goes back to the foie gras issue of saying, like, we can of course advocate for lots of wonderful things. I think there'd be few people who would say we don't want to fund our education in the city, and I don't think by ANC 3-4 saying Murch needs this specific funding for this specific reason is saying we don't want the rest of the schools funded. I think that I couldn't imagine someone taking it that way. And I do think in this case, like we've had meetings, we had meetings with Robert White's staff today, and they did look at the ANC resolution that was passed by ANC 3, I think 3 specifically for Murch. Like I absolutely think all the schools should have funding, but we're here to ask that you guys support Murch in this very specific ask for this very specific purpose. So in my opinion, I mean, you guys can obviously do what you want. I think that it's important to make it very much a Murch centric resolution. And in this instance.
Thank you, Allison. Commissioner Lynch, I'm going to have to cut you off. You've had multiple chances at the conversation. I'm calling for the vote, commissioners. The motion on the floor, as Commissioner Ferguson stated, was to vote on the resolution that he completed and as amended for the budget at Murch Elementary School. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed hearing this discussion, and I'm so glad, Commissioner Ferguson, that you got Murch parents to us. I did not realize how many kids we had at Murch. We in this commission have a tendency to focus on Lafayette because it sits within our commission, but I am really glad that you brought this up and we had a chance to hear from the Murch parent community. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate that.
Commissioner Gore, could I just also add that I thank the parents for coming and answering these questions. I meant to get at the facts of the case, not to call into question what you're trying to do. I just needed to understand what was at play. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, Commissioner Gosselin and Lynch, discussion and possible vote on a resolution honoring the service of the owners of the Fishery Seafood Market.
Well, it breaks my heart we have to have this resolution because part of the reason I moved to this neighborhood was this wonderful fish store. I moved from Manhattan, where, as it turns out, these very people's relatives have a fish store on Amsterdam Ave. But Bob and Sue Cho have retired as of Friday after 32 years of running the fishery at 5509 Connecticut Avenue Northwest. And I think it's only fitting that as Peter asked me to add to this resolution, their incredible service has produced something more than just a store, a Chevy Chase DC institution that adds to the flavor of the neighborhood. And so I'm asking the commission to vote them a resolution of thanks. And I think Commissioner Lynch, in whose district the store is located, has a friendly amendment that I very much favor, a friendly amendment to this. Oh, let me just say, Commissioner Zeldin has says that my paragraph 5, as I've drafted it, is perplexing, and so I will simply put in the chat his language, and I'm fine with it. I mean, it's not there's nothing controversial about this, and so I'm happy to take his language. Let me just define it and block define it and put it in the chat. Anyways, Commissioner Lynch, do you want to add your friendly amendment?
Yeah, I just want to say too, it's just fantastic. I grew up waiting outside the fish market as my mom would go in and get stuff for dinner there. And it just seemed, it's such a staple of the community that the thought of it being gone was sort of just a shock thinking about it, and love having businesses like that around that have a lot of character and add a lot of value to the community. So we really appreciate them being there. And my suggestion to Commissioner Gosselin was that we get with the mayor's office and our MOCR to get an official mayoral proclamation honoring that shop for all their work and service to the community. So that's what we plan to do.
So I would add that as a paragraph, let's see, with a paragraph in a resolve that the ANC, the resolved is the ANC 34G extends its heartfelt thanks to Muhang and Suan Cho for their long and splendid service, and on behalf of the Chevy Chase community, wishes the couple the best in the coming years. I'd just add that the ANC commits to seeking a mayoral resolution or mayoral declaration. Peter, you provide the language extending further thanks to the whole city. Is that acceptable to people?
Yeah, can you put the motion on the floor?
Yeah, I move that the commission approve a resolution of thanks to the Chos for their long service. I've circulated it among commissioners. I accept as a friendly amendment alteration Commissioner Zeldin's language, which I put in the chat, and I accept Commissioner Lynch's addition to our resolved, as I just stated. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Can we
So
go to?
the motion is to approve a resolution of thanks for the Childs as amended. All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, task force reports. We'll start with zoning development and design. Commissioner Gosselin.
Yes, thank you. There are a lot of moving pieces here. Some of them are moving behind the scenes, some of them moving in front. The commission at its last monthly meeting discussed what was then new news about a covenant, a bead restriction on the back 125 feet of the community center library site. We were both members of the ZDZ and council member Fruman wanted some clarity about what this restriction was, whether such restrictions existed elsewhere, and what options were. 3 lawyers, 2 of them residents of the community, have produced an extensive memo that I've circulated to commissioners and to the ZDD, and that the ZDD will discuss at its Thursday meeting at the community center. It's Thursday, April 27th, regular monthly meeting starting at 5 p.m. It turns out there are similar no apartment restrictions on most of the property on the east side of Connecticut, and dipping into just sample lots along the west side. The lawyers were not able to do a scrub of every lot, but dipping into sample lots in every block along the west side of Connecticut. There are also no apartment restrictions. If these stand and are valid, they substantially limit what we can do in terms of some change in this community. The lawyers have laid out a series of options. I very carefully said to all of you and said to the ZDD members as I've distributed this, at this point, this should be seen, this is and should be seen as the work product of the 3 lawyers. We will talk about whether or not the ZDD will take this up as a recommendation to the commission. So that is 1. 2 is that Lisa Gore and I, Chair Gore and I have been talking to potential to specialists who could help us in the issues around the matters of community survey, focus groups, and meeting facilitation. We both feel that this community, more than anything else, more than the practical differences about whether there should be affordable housing or any housing on the community center site or not, simply doesn't feel listened to and hasn't felt listened to for a long time. And we are seeking to do something about that. We are under an immense amount of pressure from the city, which is seeking to move quickly, more quickly than I think they should move. But in any case, I think we are on the trail of somebody who can help us, and in helping us can help the working groups of the ZDD, the Zoning Design and Development Committee, move forward in towards a full community survey. I think that's where we are. I think Lisa is going to talk a little about a meeting that we want to schedule. Is that right?
Yep. So one of the things that we've also been talking about, Commissioner Gosselin and myself, and others in the community, including members of ZDD, is the recent draft text amendment that OP didn't release, but the commission released to the community. We have had several requests between OP and DMPED to actually come to the community and to discuss that draft text amendment, and particularly the community's concern with the new height in that zone. We hadn't gotten a response yet from neither OP or DMPED, and they seem to be kind of moving forward with their process, which I guess is understandable for the government agencies. So I want the commission to hold a special meeting. Date-wise, me and Peter have looked at the calendar and we want to choose May 10th as that date. So if the commissioners can check their calendar, let me know by tomorrow morning if you can make May 10th. If you can't make it, that's understandable, but this is a really important hot topic right now in the community, the OP draft text amendment, which has the new height proposal that's contained within. Now, we're going to have the discussion as a special meeting. Typically, what we do in special meetings is that is the only topic. We'll allow the community to obviously have a good solid amount of time. We'll hopefully have OP there to give us their portion of the discussion regarding this draft text amendment. However, we're committed to move the meeting forward, whether OP is there or not. One of the things that's important to me as chair is to get ahead of this and to make sure that when OP sends this to the zoning commission, it goes to zoning, right, Peter?
Right.
I don't want to misspeak on that. When it goes to zoning and the ANC has a chance to weigh in on that, we have the community sentiment. So I'm not saying that this is going to be a one and done meeting. It might be one of a series of meetings. But I think we do need to, get this conversation out in front of the community and make sure that we understand where the community sits with this. And it seems like there's pretty good agreement that the draft height is more than what our communities want to see. So we want to hear from you all on that.
Let me just add to what the chair is saying, which is that as it faces the city, this is a forcing mechanism. I mean, we have tried to get them to come here. We have said repeatedly they need to talk to us about these things, and we have so far not moved them sufficiently. And so the idea here is to simply say, we're going to meet, Yeah, I mean, this is a big issue. You're going to come or not. So, I mean, I think that's a fair way to put it, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah, and I desperately need the dates from you all, Commissioner. So I'm going on record. Please send me if May 10th is workable, because I will be sending a letter to Anita Cozart tomorrow on behalf of the commission, asking her to have her staff attend the meeting. If they agree and need to change the date, then we'll update the community with the new date. But right now, let's plan on May 10th and see if we can get OP there.
So I guess I'm running this part, Commissioner Sherman.
Peter, can the lawyer's analysis be made public? I assume it's going to be once you have the ZDD meeting on Thursday.
It's a public document. I think this is a public debate. I don't see a problem.
I think members of the community obviously would benefit from seeing that. I think they're hearing it now and they're wondering about the document. That would be good. Again, on the survey matter, I wholeheartedly support surveying our community. I think it's critical, as you've already articulated, to survey them on this matter. We've talked about it a lot. Is there anything in particular that you'd want to note about the survey design, Peter, that is challenging?
That is challenging. Constructing surveys is a challenging matter all the time, and sort of in every circumstance. On this issue, with a community that is as deeply polarized, and I think it's a huge challenge. I think the issues of the draft zoning proposal are important. The issues of the use of the community center library site are important. The community's views of affordable housing are important. One of the things you'll notice here is that this community is pretty progressive, and even when they were furious, the majority were furious at DemPed for springing the surplus idea on us. That there were a lot of people talking about their willingness to accept some change and their interest in seeing some affordable housing. So one of the challenges here is designing surveys that capture and tell us something about the nature of our community's views on all of these subjects.
Right. So just here publicly, I'll reiterate what I've said privately. In my professional experience for several decades, I managed a global research program that was between $8 and $10 million of international quantitative and qualitative research. There is resident expertise also in our ANC. I have suggested various members of our community. One is in my SMD, one's in Lisa's, one's in Michael's, people who have offered to be helpful pro bono to the commission in doing survey work. So I just want to reiterate that there is abundant expertise available to help on this, Peter. Anytime that you wish to talk about it, I'm happy to do that. I just want to see us move forward, and I know you do. I'm not saying anything you don't yourself also want to see happen right away. But I just want to say you've got full support here.
Okay, well, let me address the note you sent around to the commissioners before the meeting. Look, I'm happy to talk to members of the neighborhood who have expertise in this area, but I think, and I would advocate to my fellow commissioners that we approach them independently. This community is deeply polarized. One of the aims of a survey or set of surveys is to seek to combat that polarization by making sure we ask central questions in a productive way that produces results that are credible and that are seen as credible by the community and by the city, and that help convince residents that they're being heard. Bruce, you've taken a series of strong stands on a variety of issues, including ECC, Episcopal Center, ECC, and Murray, and perhaps as importantly, the role of this ANC. Whether people like the positions you've taken or dislike them, this much is true. You are a deeply polarizing figure. And so I am reluctant, and I hope that my fellow commissioners are reluctant to turn to you for expertise on this matter of reducing polarization. Again, I'm happy to talk to other members of the community, and I think we need to have their voice, including Jerry Malice's, who's done surveys in this process. But I think we need to do this in a way that the whole community and the whole city sees this as credible and independent of a particular position. Thank you.
Well, let me just say in response to that, Peter, that I reject wholesale the notion that if someone has held views on a particular issue, the expertise one has in designing surveys and working on research projects would somehow inhibit that person's ability to make a constructive contribution. I don't see that connection. I would challenge the assumption about how I'm seen in the community. You're speaking your views. You can't speak on behalf of the entire community. So I find it somewhat shocking that you would even mention that. Keep in mind that I was elected democratically in a contested race against an incumbent and won by 200 votes. So the polarization issue did not affect my ability to be elected and to serve on the commission. So I reject what you've said. And again, I offer expertise and that of those in the community who can help us move forward on this quickly.
I'm happy to accept the help of members of the community. I have real problems with accepting your help.
Well, that's something you and I can continue to talk about. I find that just.
I mean, I also advocate to other commissioners that they consider the track record to date. Thank you.
Commissioner Zeldin.
Am I unmuted? So I want to disassociate myself, Peter, from your comments. I don't think they're appropriate. I think that we have honest disagreements about issues on various topics across the ANC this term and last term. And if we're talking about expertise in drafting a survey, which is, yes, surveys can be arranged so that they are outcome determinative, but if we're all working together and we have expertise in the community, we should avail ourselves of the expertise. And ad hominem attacks, I think, are not in our greater interests.
I don't consider this an ad hominem attack. I consider it an assessment of where we've been over the last few months.
And, traditionally, let me just say, just from my perspective, survey work is difficult. And I personally prefer to see a neutral party craft these surveys. That's what we've been working very hard to try to get. And the people that we have spoken with they do this professionally, they're independent. They are not tied to the commission in one way or the other. And they have expertise in crafting these sticky situations. So I know there's a comment that I just read, and I think it was either Michelle or I don't want to go back. Yes, Michelle Wolin. And she said in a survey, please allow people to express their honest opinions. Don't make people negotiate against themselves. People haven't been heard for 2 years on this, so please don't word the survey so you're getting results that you want. And sometimes as a commissioner, that can be tough to make sure that you don't have your personal opinion influence the product. Whether you're, professional at it or not, it comes with a different, I believe, credibility when we have an outside party that can hear from the community, take the community's concerns into account and craft something that, benefits the community and gets the commission the answers that we need, which is how the community feels. Obviously, before any survey is put out, the members of the commission would be able to weigh in and have some input into that. Survey work on this commission has never been a one person show. When we did the last survey, I believe it was Military Road School. It was 3 primary commissioners, myself, Commissioner Zeldin, and Commissioner Chang, that worked on that survey. And it was fairly difficult. So we have some ways to go on this. And we definitely hope that we get the professional expertise that we're looking for. We're definitely going to follow up with Councilmember McDuffie to see if we can, you know, make sure that he supports us in that effort, because we really need that, and the assistance of that person to help with further community engagement as we go down this process. Commissioner Lynch, then Nash.
Do we have a timeline when we should absolutely get this out? And I know as soon as possible is probably the answer, but by summer, by fall, next month, 2 weeks? What do you guys think?
Well, Peter, you can answer that.
Peter, we have tried to, earlier on in the previous months, you've asked, what's DemPed's schedule? What's OP's schedule? We've pursued that over and over and over with them. We still don't know. So one of the things that Lisa just talked about, we're calling a meeting. We're going to try to force the issue. I think in general, the way to think about this is that the city wants to move. I mean, once they get over once they figure out how they're going to handle the restriction, they're going to want to move quickly. My own, and Lisa and I may differ here. My own view is that we need a substantial amount of time, several months. We need to slow this process down and get a better handle on it. Whether we can do that or not, I don't know. Just to get some sense of what the city's plans are, we're trying to force it by calling a meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay, but my question was about our personal deadlines for the survey. What do you think about that?
We're moving as fast as we can. Yeah, we need to get this thing out, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time to be sure we've got the right people. It's going to take time to draft it. It's going to take time to consult with members of the community who have expertise in this. So, I mean, I mean, that's why we have to buy more time in terms of the calendar for the city. So, I mean, it's going to be months.
Is Link still a group that we are in communication with, or?
We're in communication with them, but they basically ghosted us. DemPed has hired them.
So right now we're looking for a new.
I think we're on the line.
Person.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that's, we progressed pretty far along on that. So it's not like we're in the dark with trying to find somebody new.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
And Bruce, you had some people in mind, not yourself maybe, but you had other people in mind in the community, didn't you?
I've provided those names multiple times.
And they were interested in doing this pro bono?
There are people that I've consulted on the surveys that I would want to do even in my own single member district, which I have held off on because of the pending broader discussion about surveying the entire ANC. Yes, they've offered to be helpful pro bono. And so again, and in preparation for the admin meeting on Wednesday, and what I sent around, I gave you links to their LinkedIn sites. We can look at their professional expertise. It's been abundantly clear. I would just also come back and say, I just have to tell you that I find this conversation outrageous. And Chair Gore, you're the one who has frequently admonished citizens not to engage in ad hominem attacks. And yet you permit a fellow commissioner to do it here against another commissioner who's democratically elected. Let's keep in mind that, and you're all democratically elected and you're all properly seated, but many of you ran unopposed. And here you have someone who actually was in a competitive race and won by a significant margin. And yet there is a concern somehow expressed about this person's views or this person's positions or something to that extent that has absolutely no bearing on this whatsoever, and is serving to work at cross purposes with this commission's own work when you have someone offering abundant professional expertise that's sorely needed here, and yet is being blackballed effectively here because of someone's concerns about this person's views about what? I don't know. I'm flabbergasted, frankly, by this. I honestly, it's very hard to take this in.
Well, Bruce, the reason I asked the question is I didn't think it was
Hang
fair
on a minute.
to.
Wait a minute, Commissioner Lynch. Commissioner Lynch, with all due respect, let's bring some order back to the meeting. there are commissioners that have their hands raised. Let's go to them first. Commissioner Gosselin had his hands raised, and Commissioner Sherman, I'm going to address what you said. You can be flabbergasted about me. I didn't allow anybody to do anything. Commissioner Gosselin made a statement. And I will say to Commissioner Gosselin and to all the other commissioners and the community members, the same thing that I've said. Let's not make any remarks about other people that are going to be offensive to other people. If you are offended by his remarks, I apologize. But please do not, choose your words carefully. I did not allow, Commissioner Gosselin is a grown man and he had the mic. I didn't allow him to say anything, okay? That's all I'm going to say to you on that. Commissioner Gosselin, then Nash.
Let me just say, Bruce, no one is keeping you from, I certainly wouldn't advocate anybody keeping you from doing your democratically elected duty. You will, of course, as a commissioner, have a say in reviewing any survey that we field. Over and above that, you have suggested that we consult you as an expert. And all I'm saying is that I hope that we look elsewhere, including, I'm happy to talk with the people whose resumes you posted recently, but I want to approach them independently. So it's nobody is trying to keep you from playing the role that you play on this commission, similar to the role I play, but it's the independent expertise that I would advocate to fellow commissioners we look elsewhere for. Thank you.
Commissioner Nash.
Yeah. I want to agree with what Commissioner Gore said before. I'm a longtime fan of 538, and I have learned doing surveys in a reliable and scientific way is very complicated. Even people that do it for a living often don't do it very well, okay? And when you add to that the bias of living here or being a commissioner, I think it can do more harm than good. It can bad information is worse than no information. So I would be in favor of us going outside of the commission and even outside of the community to get people who are more likely to be unbiased, as well as who have the expertise to do this right. My question, though, is how can we afford to pay for this? And, you know, I'm afraid if we get pro bono people who live in the community, they're going to have some kind of an axe to grind, and that may be why they do it. And I would have less confidence in it. This doesn't have anything to do with a commissioner's position on anything else. This is simply human nature. But so my question is, how are we going to get the money to pay for the survey and have it done right?
So that is a great question, Commissioner Nash, and why we were looking for outside groups that we could partner with on this, because it's not just a survey. We're in a tremendous long process in this issue of the Civic Corps and trying to get the community engagement where the community thinks it should be and where we think it should be. And we haven't had that in the past. We've gotten estimates from professional groups that go as high as $10,000 a month. What we have, and you're right, that is a, we could not, I mean, Commissioner Sherman, you had to request an opinion from council about the use of St. John? And if that wasn't that something that you requested a while back?
Not Council Bega.
Yeah, Bega. So, I mean, we have to be very careful with this. So now we know that this is potentially an engagement that if a community member did it, that time value is roughly $10,000 a month. We probably have to get an opinion about that. So had been working with DMPED and OP, the government, to actually, and our council members, to pay for this, to get budget money dedicated for that engagement. And it's not just a mere survey, it's a whole engagement process. It's not, and like I said, with the OP conversation, it's not a one and done. We can't just have one session with the community and issue a survey and it's done. That's not going to be sufficient. And that's not what we want. So that's why we're trying to slow down DMPED's process. We talked to the mayor about this. Someone put in the chat, Lisa, have you talked to the mayor? Absolutely. We've talked to the mayor. We've talked to the council members. We're going to talk to Councilmember McDuffie since he gave us a heads up. We're looking at this as a very extensive community engagement process that hopefully the community will be, satisfied with, and hopefully it will give us the necessary information that we have not had from day one. So you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that up. Commissioner Lynch.
The point that I was going to reiterate just before is that one, I think if we can keep ourselves cool and collected and not make these accusations at each other, that's going to go a long way. But putting a date on the board, I think, would narrow the process and get us focused. I mean, we are very quickly moving into the summer, and well, I wonder, I mean, if we didn't have a survey by fall, would that do we want to have it before fall? Do we want to have it before August? Is it contingent on what the city offers? Maybe I'm asking these questions partly for the benefit of people listening too.
No, let me address that, Peter, and then you can chime in. So one of the things, Commissioner Lynch, and I think we said this very consistently amongst the commission and in the community, DMPED, and I talked to Jill Stucker yesterday, I'm forgetting, yesterday, it might've been today, yesterday, I believe. They are not giving us a date, okay? So in order for us to have a date, and I really need folks to understand how important this is for us to understand DMPED's timeline and process, including OP's timeline and process. We have no idea when OP is going to give that draft text amendment to the zoning commission. That's critical for us because, and I believe somebody put in the chat, forgive me for not remembering who put it there, rightfully said, we must influence that draft before it gets to zoning. So our first bite at the apple is going to say, community, what do you want? And I want to hear it all. And I want us to do a knockdown, drag out, detailed resolution of the community sentiment and send that to OP, and try to influence them. And even prior to getting to the resolution, coming to the meeting is a very early first step to allow them to see what our community feels about that draft text amendment. Hopefully that will be enough to influence them, giving the parameters that are supposed to be considered in approving that through zoning. If that doesn't work, and why I have always said, and I've always said this, my fear is that we're going to be behind the 8 ball. As chair of this commission, my fear is that we're not going to have these meetings in place prior to that happening. So I am working, and the commission is working completely in the dark. The only thing that we can do at this point, and I know from talking to DMPED that they're moving rather rapidly, not giving us a date, but I know they're moving rather rapidly, is I need to move us just as fast. So in terms of the OP side, our first step is to have this community meeting to hopefully influence them to attend and hopefully get them information that shows where the community comes in on this draft text amendment, which I believe does not support it. That's number one. Number two is the rest of the process. We don't know when they're going to start our RFP because they will not tell us. So we have to start the community engagement process around that part as well, which includes the surveys, multiple community meetings, and talking about the issues that had been left off the table from day one. So we can't give you a specific date. We cannot give the community a specific date other than this initial meeting. The only thing I can tell you and the community is we are pushing and driving as hard as possible to get this started yesterday, because we do not, ZDD, Commissioner Gosselin, myself, and I know the rest of the commission, do not want to run up against a council hearing for surplus and disposition when we have not gone back to this community. And again, we cannot do it in a one-shot deal. So we have to start, and that's why we're saying we're starting as soon as possible. We started this months ago. And, you know, in terms of the engagement, the survey work, you know, we are hoping that the company that we're trying to partner with now can get that through at the highest levels of government. That is what they have worked on starting last week, and that's what they'll be working on all this week. So as soon as we can kind of shore that up, we'll have something more concrete in terms of date.
So just a follow-up question. Just a follow-up question. There was a lot of, for folks that are listening, there was a lot of talk of the OP zoning laws or the zoning changes for the area and then the civic core. Do we anticipate that a survey would address both or just the civic core?
Well, let me address that. I think we need to decide whether, because the first thing we could have a big influence on is the proposed zoning for the community center library. We may want to hive that off as a separate, more targeted survey. But in general, the issue is this, that this community has been taken over the last 3 years through 2+ years through a process where they have not felt listened to. The small area plan, I mean, Lisa and I have different views on some of this and different views about exactly the timing that's needed to fix this. But fundamentally, I think we agree that the small area plan process did not leave this community feeling like it had come to some basic agreements about how we're going to change our built environment in the future. Now, notwithstanding that, it's now in the comp plan, and now we, like, weekly or at least monthly, we're hit with a new big surprise. You know, in late November, we're told, oh, we're talking about a surplusing a portion of our community, of our civic core. Oh, in March, we're told, in February, we're told there turns out to be a restriction dating back a century on that civic core. My own view is that what we need in a survey and what we need in focus groups and what we need in meetings is in some substantial sense a redo of the law of the small area planning process so that people in this community get to be heard. Now, I think that's going to take a substantial amount of time. So if we could slow the city down, we might not do the survey till the fall, but we are not in the driver's seat here, you know, so if the city jams forward, this commission is going to face some tough decisions and face them without adequate information, without the surveys, without the focus groups, without the meetings that are well handled so that they're not just screaming sessions. But the fact is that this community hasn't been heard from in any sensible way over a very long time. And it's gonna, my view is it's gonna take some time to unwind that mess and to get it right. And so I don't know if the city will allow it, but that's what, I mean, I think you could be talking about fall before we start really getting deep into it. But the city, you know, if they drive us forward faster, we're gonna have to decide as a commission what we do. Any of that, any help?
Yeah, a bit. I wonder, just as an idea, Commissioner Sherman and Commissioner Goslin, would it be helpful to have some of those folks that offered their pro bono survey help to attend the next ZDD meeting and sit in and check it out and talk with folks that are at the meeting?
Let me suggest that, I think that the ZDD meeting this time is going to pick up the memo that I sent you, but I'd be happy to schedule a special ZDD meeting and meet with those people. I mean, that'd be fine. I think, but we ought to bring Jerry Mallitz in too.
Commissioner Sherman, would you be open to making that connection to the ZDD?
He's made the connection. He sent us the LinkedIn profiles, I think, of these people. So, I mean, we have them.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Sherman, if you're able to do that.
Mr. Ferguson?
I have a question, but you know what? I'm going to keep it offline because it's getting late. But I've got a question I'll send offline, but I hope we can move forward. We're getting late here.
Anything else on the committee report?
Yeah, I think we need to make a small change. Commissioner Lynch has stepped down as co-chair of the ZDD, and I propose that we change, that we appoint Susan Slater to that post, and that represents a change in an amendment to our January 9th resolution appointing Commissioner Sherman. Okay, so I move that. Do I have a second?
We had a
Second.
Well, we seconded. The call has been for discussion. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 7-0. One thing, Peter, I do want to address is we do have Michael Aiken online.
Like to speak, that's fine.
The only thing I want to address in terms of the comment that they ghosted us. They were
look, I apologize for that. Members of the ZDZ have reached out to him. You, Lisa, and I have been trying to talk to DemPed about what they're doing. We have not had any success. So let me just say, we have been operating in the dark. We had early conversations with Michael that I very much appreciate. And then separately, some of the working groups, some of the working groups of the ZDD had conversations with him. And then we heard nothing, but it may well be my incapacities as a communicator.
Thank you, Peter. If we cannot say that, that would be appreciated. All right, so anything else on ZDD? We're moving on to Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee. I don't know if the committee members that would be reporting out are here. I don't see them on the on the line, sorry. But also in terms of the chair and the co-chairs of that committee, we're going to make a change. I am going to ask for the commission to agree with change of co-chair from myself, who cannot continue to co-chair it due to time restraints. Pass it over to Libby Martin and Corinthia Simmons, who are members of the committee, who were members of the task force on racism, or Libby was. And Corinthia has been with the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee pretty much since its inception. Libby Martin was part of the Task Force on Racism Community Working Group, and I believe she also did housing. So if there are no objections, I move that for the remainder of 2024, The new
2023.
committee co-chairs are Libby Martin and Corinthia Simmons. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion with that, folks? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you, 7-0. And Murray, I don't know if Jenny or Michael Osborne, are you on? I know Jenny was on earlier, but she had another meeting. Commissioner Sherman, do you want to add anything on behalf of the co-chairs? You're on mute.
Sorry, the task force met last Wednesday. We heard on the task force reports from Murray, from the construction company, reports on the movement of the trees and what have you. It was relatively, I think, straightforward without any particular issues. So yeah, I think it's fairly well in order. Nothing significant to add to that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on Murray?
Is somebody going to post the BZA order? It's not my SMD.
It's posted.
It's
The
posted where?
task force has posted it.
Oh,
Well, I posted it on the
It's
website.
posted a couple times over.
I didn't see it on any social media. I would think that people would need to know about this.
I've distributed it to all of the single member district residents as of my newsletter yesterday, 550 recipients. I've widely distributed.
Thank you.
Hey, Bruce, one quick question. Do you post on the Chevy Chase chatter too?
I post only to, I distribute my weekly newsletter to my constituent email list. I haven't made a habit of posting on any of the other social media platforms particularly. I could, I just haven't done it.
Okay, I was just thinking as an adjunct to your newsletter, which is terrific. You get a broader cut of the ANC if we go that way.
I know. And then, of course, you do then have the management issue. It's not a management issue, but you have the time commitment issue of engaging with comments that people make. And that's good. I do that now with my own constituents because I'm obviously working very closely with them. I take your point. I'll certainly look at it.
Just take a look. I'm not telling you to do anything.
Thank you.
Commission business. In terms of the March 13th and 27th minutes, Commission, if you don't mind, I know Commissioner Nash sent something back in terms of adding the links on a Zoom. I'm just not sure we're all ready to vote on a March 13th minute meetings. So do you guys mind if we put that vote off until the next meeting?
No, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Zachary, financials, check payments and expenses.
Yes, so we have two transactions to vote on. I'm going to bundle. The first is a vote on cutting a check to Commissioner Gosselin. This is reimbursing him for batteries he purchased. They were needed for the mayor's budget forum. This is $47.66. And then I believe those are microphone batteries, if I'm not mistaken. And then the second transaction is to approve a debit card payment to Zoom, also for the mayor's budget forum that we hosted not long ago. And that's for $83.74. That's for the one-time webinar feature that we took good advantage of. So my motion is to approve those two expenditures.
Second. Yeah.
All right. Barring a discussion, all in favor, raise your hands. 7-0. Great.
So under the next item, Should we discuss the AV equipment?
Yep, let's get that voted on.
I mean, Zach, do you want to make that? I suggest a motion to buy an Owl 3. And in addition, I suggest that I give Zach, as soon as I go up to the office, and I'm sure I've got the right model number, I find on Amazon a replacement mics for what look like 3 or 4. These are the mics for the commissioners. Replace the ones that aren't working, and we just live with the current system as we try to move to hybrid meeting.
What's the motion, Peter?
Well, am I stepping on your ground? I mean,
No, I can make the motion. I think this is important. We want to take some time because we've been, this is a large expenditure. It's we've talked about internally, obviously we want to get the hybrid meetings as soon as possible. We need the technology. We tried the Owl. Another ANC was generous enough to lend it to us. It worked quite well. We still need to tweak it, but it's the product is called the Owl 3. It's with taxes, it's $1,111.94. So quite a large purchase. But in our admin meeting, I think we talked about cutting off our Verizon expenditure, so we're offsetting some expenses. So that would be a big purchase and investment. We'll test it out and see if that can get us to hybrid meetings. So my motion is to approve the debit card expense for the Owl 3 for $1,111. And
could we add a
Peter?
And add up to $100 for battery for microphone replacements.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, and up to $100 to buy microphones because we have a couple that were broken.
Okay. Ask for the.
I make one observation about this.
Please, we're way out of order, folks. Please, we're out of order. The motion is on the table. Can somebody please second the motion?
I second it.
Okay. One question I want to ask real quick, and I know Michael has a comment. I think we have to be very careful with putting in bottom line figures here. I need clarity on the motion. Is the motion to purchase the Owl and the mics, Peter? I thought you just said that you wanted to use the mics that we have in place.
No, why don't we? I suggest that we might as well we use the system we have in place, but we know that we have some dead mics. I mean, we could go back and forth trading them, but we're trying to.
I get that. I just need the motion to be clear. Are we purchasing Owls and mics or just the Owl?
I suggest we purchase Owls and 4 replacement mics for the broken ones.
Okay. Okay. So Zach, your motion was to purchase the Owl at $1,111.94. And did you have an amount on your motion for the 4 replacement mics?
Having looked at it on Amazon, I'd say up to $100 for the replacement mics.
Each or all?
No, all 4.
Okay,
They're about $20 a piece.
Okay, so can Zach, can you restate that motion very clearly?
Yes, I move that the commission purchase the Owl 3 for $1,111.94, as well as 4 replacement microphones for up to $100 using the ANC debit card.
Up to $100 each.
Total.
No, total.
For up to, you could say up to $25 per microphone for 4 microphones.
Okay, so discussion. So how much is it? Okay, Commissioner Zeldin, you go first.
I just want to make one small observation, which is that if we go hybrid, as we've talked about doing, and as we talked about on our administrative call, we have to be out of there before 9 o'clock. We're at 10 o'clock now. I don't think we've never had a meeting that lasted 2 hours. So we have to figure out how we're going to deal with the fact that 2 hours has never been enough time for us to have a meeting. And if we're moving to in-person, partially, we got to figure out as a commission and as a community, what do we want to do about that? That's my
Okay.
observation.
Thank you. Let's stay on topic. The topic.
That is topic, because it might be that we shouldn't go to hybrid.
The motion is for the purchase. That's a separate conversation, I believe. So let's
No,
talk
no.
about the motion to purchase. And I agree, we talked about it, our admin meeting. I just don't want to belabor that because that's going to be a lot of discussion.
No, I don't think, I'll just leave it be, Lisa, but I'm just saying, it could, voting against buying these things could be a voting against going hybrid. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that we can live with hybrid meetings as we're currently structured.
Okay.
I'm
Commissioner,
not sure we can live with 3-hour meetings.
I agree. Commissioner Gosselin,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to be really clear on the mic cost. You're saying $100 for 4 mics?
Yeah, they're cheap.
How much do they cost if you know?
I think I saw they're $17.79, but here we go.
But are they good quality mics?
What they are they are basically exact replacements for what we've got now with the current system.
Okay.
There's nothing, we just have not done hybrid.
No, that's fine.
I'm just suggesting that we get the current system up to cruising level. We may discover we need something different, better, worse, in the future, but at least 3 and potentially 4 of the 8 mics are dead.
No, I understand. And
Yeah.
you clarified the point when you said we're replacing the current system. That's fine. Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I know
Yep.
mics can be very expensive.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion on the purchase? Okay. Commissioner Lynch, can you come off camera so we can take the vote? All right. Zach.
Okay, I'm moving that the ANC purchase with the ANC debit card, the OWL 3 for $1,111.94, as well as 4 microphones that shall not exceed $100 in total cost. Thank you, David Patton, for the language suggestion.
And we already had a second on this, so all we need is vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous, 7-0. Regarding administrative assistant announcement, that is posted on the ANC's website. I also attended along with Commissioner Nash. Thank you, Commissioner Nash, for tagging along to the Ward 4 job fair. That was awesome to have you there. We had a great time hanging out with the council members and other Ward 4 commissioners. The job fair was very well attended. We got quite a bit of interest. I had 150, I think, copies that I made, and we only had a few that were left over. I know some folks have already submitted resumes, so we'll keep taking applications until the announcement closes on June 3rd. And I'll post it in the listserv and on social media and every place tomorrow. And in terms of possible items for our May 8th meeting, Zach, you still on board for discussion on the Capitol bike share locations?
Yeah.
And also potential presentation from DC Smart Street Lighting Project. Commissioner Lynch, we still have Whittle School. We've had it on the agenda for a while as a possible discussion. Are you working on that at all?
Well, I think so. There was a recent change in the assessment of the Whittle site. And I don't know if we ever heard back from State Board of Education Representative Goulet. So I'll have to check again. And I think the ground has shifted a little bit at Whittle, but if folks are interested in tackling it, we certainly could try again with
well,
Representative Goulet.
I mean, you let me know. It's under your hat. If you want to reach out to Eric, please reach out. I just want to make sure we don't continue to carry it forward if we're not gonna do the discussion.
Yeah, I will, in that case, I would take it off for the next meeting. I don't think it's pressing for the next meeting, so I would take it from there.
Okay.
Lisa,
Mhm.
on the, if we're gonna do, if DC smart street lighting is the issue of the new lighting system, we ought to be sure to invite Laura Finizzi, because this is going to be a big change in the neighborhood, and it's going to come up in August, September. I think they're going to reach us. We
Who
may.
is doing that, Peter?
This is the woman I worked with when they started putting up the overbright bulbs last December. She's sat on the citizens.
No, I know.
advisory.
Are you the lead commissioner on this, though? That's what I was asking.
I was the last time. I mean, the problem sort of went away, but I think it's going to come back when they put up all the new lights. And so
Can you keep it?
I'm happy to do a presentation. I'm happy to lead on that presentation, but I want to be sure we invite her.
Got it.
This is the group that this is the group within the government, within the district government that is spearheading this effort. Is that correct? Is that who's going to do the presentation? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm happy to handle that. Yeah.
I can share the email with you.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay. And then I'm still trying to get the DC Water update on a lead-free DC lead service line replacement project for our area. I'll put on here WMATA. I asked WMATA chair or staff to talk to us about the better, visionary bus routes that they have. Anything else, commissioners, for potential on May 8th?
Two things. One, I mentioned previously the 311 service, and then the residential construction issue, which is percolating.
Okay. Are you taking both of those, Commissioner?
I would, yeah. And Commissioner Zeldin has asked to join in the look at residential construction, so we would work on that together. Commissioner Zeldin? Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? If any commissioner can hang on the line after the meeting is adjourned, I'd greatly appreciate it. About 5-10 minutes.
What?
If
We've got the QFR.
That's fine. Okay. The meeting is adjourned at
Wait,
10:16.
Wait, I think she said we have to vote on the quarterly financial report.
Oh, Zach, why did you tell me?
Sorry.
It was on?
Sorry, I didn't know we had. All right.
I forgot. You're absolutely right.
This
Go
should be quick. All right, sharing screen. Here we go. So this is our quarterly financial report, page 1. It's the big picture showing this is for fiscal year 23, quarter 2. That's January, February, March of this year. We spent about $1,000. We still have a significant amount of money in our bank account at $42,900. Let me go to page 2 if I can find it. Okay. So this is the other page, which just shows the detailed transactions. Mostly it's communication related, Zoom, Verizon. So I'll be very excited when we get this Verizon, because that's been the majority of our quarterly expenses. So those are it. And we need to approve this in order to get allotments. If anyone has questions, please let me know. I'm happy to discuss. And any residents out there who are watching, if you want to know more about the budget, I'm always available to chat about our treasury. But I move to approve the quarterly financial report for fiscal year 23, quarter 2.
Second. You want to take down the screen? So we can,
Yeah. Can you move? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Motion carried. All right. Is that it, commissioners? All business? Okay, so I adjourn at 10:18. If you guys don't mind, just a really quick. I know it's late. Just really quick conversation. I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you, community.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. It was a long one.
I used to do 3D.